Chapter 28:20. Meng Qingxue nodded hurriedly.
Yes, I ate at the canteen.
What did you eat?
I ate buns and dried tofu.
Are you full? You don't want to eat more?
Meng Qingxue quickly waved her hand.
No, I'm full. Chu Ho nodded. Meng Qingxue sat opposite her and quietly watched her eat her porridge. She didn't know why, but ever since Chu Ho woke up after her operation, her entire aura had changed. In the past, although Chu Ho looked cold on the surface, she still had an extremely gentle aura. It was probably because she was a mother that she was very easygoing. However, the current Chu Ho only made her think of one word. Machine. Her eyes were cold, and her expression was indifferent. Even when she was eating, she was like a robot. Her eyes were rigid and her face was serious, as if she didn't have any emotions. However, such a posture was very elegant and pleasing to the eye. She was like a noble gentleman of the royal family. Her facial features were very beautiful, but because of her short hair, she had a cold aura that some women didn't have. For a moment, she couldn't think of any man who could conquer such an aura. Meng Qingxue couldn't help but imagine what kind of person Xiao Bao's father was. A man who could conquer Chu Ho must be very powerful. She was very curious. However, after Chu Ho woke up, he didn't mention anything about the past. This made her more or less disappointed. Although she knew that there were some things that she shouldn't ask about, she was still very curious. After struggling for a long time in her heart, Meng Qingxue finally mustered the courage to ask, Chu Ho, do you remember those things in the past? I'm full. Chu Ho acted as if he didn't hear her question. He put down the bowl and picked up the napkin to gently wipe the corner of his mouth. Meng Qingxue's words were interrupted. She glanced at the bowl. She didn't drink much, only half a bowl. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Are you full?
Yes, I'm full.
Chu Ho's tone was very calm. Meng Qingxue, on the other hand, was very sensitive. She pursed her lips and asked suspiciously, Did I ask something I shouldn't have and you're upset? Chu Ho looked up and met her eyes. After a moment of silence he said, You just asked me if I remembered the past. I heard it clearly, but I don't want to answer. His tone was sharp and clear, without any sloppiness. You don't want to tell me? Meng Qingxue was disappointed. Why? Why don't you want to talk about it?
Chu Ho said, Not a good memory.
How could that be? Don't tell me that after so many years, there isn't a single memory that makes you happy?
Yes.
Chu Ho paused and said, There are some memories that make me feel warm, like you and Xiao Bao. I cherish them very much. Meng Qingxue smiled. Suddenly, she saw that Chu Ho's expression gradually turned cold. There are some memories that are like humiliation in my heart. Even if I remember them, I don't want to look back. Meng Qingxue was stunned. Is it about that man?
Yes.
Xiao Bao's biological father, right? When Chu Ho heard this, he smiled expressionlessly.
Yes. You don't have any feelings for him?
Meng Qingxue thought hard. Or did he betray you?
I betrayed him.
Whether it's me or him, I don't have any feelings for him. Chapter 28:21. Then, how did you guys get together with Xiao Bao? Meng Qingxue asked cautiously. Chu Ho's gaze suddenly turned sharp. Seeing the change in her gaze, Meng Qingxue immediately said, It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. It's my fault for being nosy. I shouldn't have asked so much. It's okay. Chu Ho lowered her eyes with a cold gaze. For the past few days, Chu Ho had been recuperating in the hospital in peace. However, ever since Mu Yanqing and Meng Qingxue parted on bad terms, he had not come to the hospital or look for her. In order to take care of Chu Ho, Meng Qingxue settled herself in the hospital. After all, she was not in good health and had to take a pregnancy-stabilizing injection every day. It was slightly more convenient to settle herself in the hospital. Within a few days, Chu Ho noticed her abnormality. Where's Mu Yanqing? She asked Meng Qingxue. Why hasn't he come to look for you these past few days? Meng Qingxue was washing clothes. When she heard her question, her expression became even more desolate, but she did not say anything in the end. Chu Ho walked to her side and asked indifferently, Did you have a fight?
No.
Then what happened?
I made him angry.
Meng Qingxue said somewhat vexedly, He probably misunderstood me. Anyway, it's complicated. I seem to have triggered his most sensitive part. Chu-ho did not know how to respond for a moment. Suddenly, she asked the most important question. What do you plan to do with him?
I heard that he has a fiancée.
How did you know? Meng Qingxue asked in surprise.
Chu-ho narrowed her eyes and suddenly asked meaningfully, "Do you know what I used to do?"
Meng Qingxue looked confused and shook her head.
Chu-ho slowly leaned closer to her and said word by word, "I was an intelligence agent and later worked at the Interpol headquarters." Meng Qingxue thought she was joking and couldn't help but tease. "You're that good?" "Humph," Chu-ho continued. "However, I can tell that he cares more about you and doesn't have any feelings for his fiancée. Although this man's character was a little bad, his nature was not bad. At the very least, he treats you with sincerity."
Meng Qingxue's expression suddenly froze.
She suddenly threw her clothes into the laundry sink and muttered gloomily, "So what?"
Chu-ho sized her up and suddenly smiled. "Do you know what you look like now?"
"What?"
"A self-pitying abandoned woman." Meng Qingxue's expression was extremely ugly. "Didn't I tell you to fight for what you want? Do whatever it takes to get it?" Meng Qingxue looked at her abruptly. "You mean, you want me to compete with that woman? What's the problem?"
Chu-ho cast a sidelong glance at her.
"You don't dare?" It's not that I don't dare, but I don't have the confidence." "Without confidence, it's the same as having no guts." Chu-ho smiled. "As long as you want something, you should work hard to fight for it, right? As long as you think it's worth it, you should fight for it at all costs." After that, she got up, returned to the hospital bed and lay down. Meng Qingxue continued to wash her clothes, but no one knew what she was thinking about. It was only when Chu-ho fell asleep that she finished washing the clothes and hung them up to dry. Chapter 28-22. Meng Qingxue continued to wash the clothes, but no one knew what she was thinking about. It was not until Chu-ho fell asleep that she finished washing all the clothes and slowly hung them up to dry. She returned to the ward and took out her phone. After hesitating for a long time, she finally tapped on Mu Yanqing's number. The call went through, and after a few rings, it was hung up. Hearing the beeping sound from the other end of the line, Meng Qingxue curled her lips coldly and dialed the number again. This time, however, the man was determined not to pick up her call. He did not even give her a chance to ring before he hung up the call. Meng Qingxue persevered and kept dialing. Mu Yanqing then patiently hung up the call. Meng Qingxue, on the other hand, was unbelievably persistent. On the 99th call, Mu Yanqing could not take it anymore. He picked up the call and yelled angrily, "Meng Qingxue, are you crazy?" From his tone, it seemed that he had drunk a little and was in a tipsy state. His words were childish and angry like a child. The background was a little noisy. There was no need to think. He must have gone to the bar to drink again. For some reason, when she heard his voice, Meng Qingxue's originally calm face finally rippled. Her eyes suddenly turned red, and her dry lips paused for a moment before she finally said his name. "Yanqing? I miss you so much." As soon as she said this, tears suddenly gushed out. Meng Qingxue could not help but wipe the corners of her eyes with her hand. She hated herself for being so disappointing and felt that this fragile look was too laughable. Why was she so disappointing? She had clearly thought of venting all the grievances and frustrations she had felt over the past few days as soon as he picked up the phone. However, when the words reached her throat, once she heard his voice, she could not help but soften. Perhaps, it was because her love was etched in her bones that she was defeated in the whirlpool of love and had to compromise repeatedly. Perhaps, those who had never loved would never understand how hopeless it was to be afraid of losing someone. Because he loved her too much, he was always in a humble position at the watershed of many relationships, lowering himself into the dust. Mu Yanqing was born arrogant, so he had his pride. But she loved him so much that she didn't even care about her self-esteem. "I miss you very much. Where are you? I'll go and find you." Mu Yanqing was stunned when he heard that. His voice suddenly became erratic. "Don't come looking for me. We're already over." "And?" Meng Qingxue widened her eyes in shock. Just as she was about to say something, Mu Yanqing sneered and said, "Qingxue, I'm the one who's incapable of giving my woman a carefree and happy life like my insufferably arrogant second brother. I feel that I have a clear conscience towards you, but when I think about what you said that day,
It still feels like a fishbone stuck in my throat. I don't understand. Why? In your eyes, I'm like this. Mu Yanqing's throat became hoarse as he gritted his teeth and hung up the call. It's not like that. It's not like that. Meng Qingxue stood up abruptly and grabbed her bag tightly. As she rushed out of the door, she quickly dialed his number, but he still chose to hang up on her every call. He's not picking up my calls. Chapter 28-23. Was he really going to end this relationship? She originally thought that he was just in a fit of anger that day and that he would think things through in a few days. She had said those words in a fit of anger that day and he had misinterpreted her meaning. However, she did not expect it to be so serious. She did not expect that those words that day would be such a huge blow to him. Meng Qingxue hurriedly hailed a taxi and instructed the driver, Bar Street. Okay. The driver familiarly turned on the meter. When night fell, the traffic was not so congested. They sped all the way to the bar. Meng Qingxue alighted at the bar that Mu Yanqing frequented the most. After paying the fare, she clenched her fists and slowly walked into the bar. As soon as she stepped through the door, she was immediately surrounded by the almost deafening rhythmic beats. She rarely came to places like bars, and even if she did, it was more often with Mu Yanqing. Meng Qingxue was not used to it for a moment and hurriedly covered her ears. It was midnight. At this time, the nightlife had just begun and the bar had just started warming up. Amidst the music, unrestrained men and women stood on the dance floor, constantly swaying to the rhythm. Meng Qingxue shuttled through the crowd and slowly sized up the bar counter. Such seats were usually occupied by young models and beautiful women. This bar was very famous and often visited by singers and actors. After disguising themselves, they would hunt in such places. The entire bar was taken over by the Young Models Company. At this time, the company would arrange for many young models to sit in this place. Once any producer came here for entertainment and saw them, he would personally pick one. At this time, if the young model worked hard enough and was willing to go all out, what would happen in the future would depend on her own luck. Meng Qingxue then walked to the booth of the private room. When she passed by the third booth, she saw Mu Yanqing being surrounded by a group of people. He was an extremely outstanding man. Even in such a noisy environment, she could see him at a glance with his outstanding appearance and noble temperament. When Meng Qingxue saw him, she was stunned for 2 seconds before she finally reacted. She turned around and walked into the booth. Mu Yanqing was drinking. He could no longer remember how many glasses he had drunk, nor could he remember how many days it had been since he indulged himself in the noisy music and ended up dead drunk. Stop drinking. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from above. Mu Yanqing jerked back to his senses and looked up, only to see Meng Qingxue standing in front of him. Her breathing was slightly undulating as she stared at him intently. Why did you get yourself into this state? You're drunk. Stop drinking. It's none of your business. Mu Yanqing pushed her expressionlessly. Just as he was about to reach for the wine glass, Meng Qingxue took the initiative to snatch the glass. Stop drinking. Mu Yanqing raised his head and met her gaze with a pair of cold eyes. A well-dressed woman sitting next to him saw her actions and could not help but feel a little displeased. She asked snappily, "Who are you? Why are you poking your nose into other people's business?" Meng Qingxue glanced at her and retorted sarcastically, "Do I have anything to do with you? I'm minding my man. Why are you interrupting?" Meng Qingxue mocked her coldly again. His domineering declaration made everyone's jaws drop to the floor. What? This woman claimed that Mu Yanqing was her man. Chapter 28-24. Mu Yanqing waved her hand away. "I've said it before, you don't have to care about me." With that, he reached out to snatch the wine glass from Meng Qingxue's hand. Meng Qingxue dodged and suddenly picked up the wine glass. She pressed her lips against the rim of the glass and pretended to drink it in one gulp. When Mu Yanqing saw this, his mind shuddered and only one thought flashed across his mind. She was pregnant and could not drink. Almost instinctively, he snatched the wine glass from her hand and smashed it on the ground. There was a loud bang. The wine glass shattered and the floor was in a mess. Because of this sudden scene, everyone sitting in the private room was so shocked that they did not dare to breathe. It was obvious that Mu Yanqing was really angry. Once this man was angry, he was extremely frightening. Everyone was so scared that they did not dare to speak. Mu Yenqing was filled with anger and almost roared. Don't you know that pregnant women can't drink? Are you crazy? Just as he finished speaking, a woman was so surprised that she screamed in shock. Oh my God! Pregnant! This woman is pregnant. Otherwise, why would Mu Yenqing say such a thing? If she was really pregnant, then there was no need to think about whose child she was carrying. This woman's background was not simple. One had to know that Mu Yenqing was famous for being a playboy in the circle. He had countless affairs and had many women. However, he had never allowed any woman to do anything out of line. It was even more impossible for her to get pregnant. However, this woman was definitely an exception. Who exactly was she? What was even more surprising was that she actually dared to slap the table and talk to Mu Yenqing. Wasn't she too arrogant because she was pampered? Should Mu Yenqing dote on her a lot? Only Meng Qingxue raised her head to look at him. She then smirked coldly. I only asked you to stop drinking. You're already so drunk. Mu Yenqing was stunned and he suddenly frowned. Let's go back. No. Meng Qingxue reached out to pull his hand. Let's go back together, okay? Don't touch me. Mu Yenqing brushed her hand away abruptly and turned to leave. Meng Qingxue knew that he had drunk too much and was in a bad mood, so his face was very ugly. She immediately chased after him out of the bar, only to see him standing by the side of the street. Under the streetlights, his back was elongated, and he looked extremely lonely. Mu Yenqing took out a cigarette box, lit it, and took 2 deep puffs. When he heard footsteps rushing out from behind him, he turned around to take a look. Meng Qingxue immediately walked towards him. Mu Yenqing did not even spare him a glance as he turned around and strode down the street. Meng Qingxue quickly followed. The two of them walked one after the other. His legs were long, and his strides were wide. She was worried about the child in her belly, so she naturally couldn't run. However, following him at such a fast pace was gradually becoming a little strenuous. How could he walk so fast? Meng Qingxue said, Yenqing, wait for me, okay? Mu Yenqing did not react at all. Meng Qingxue became increasingly anxious and chased after him even faster. Her breathing gradually quickened. Don't walk so fast. Wait for me, wait for me. She kept chasing after him. There were a few times when she was so anxious that she almost tripped over the gravel under her feet. Meng Qingxue was angry and anxious. Chapter 28-25. Mu Yenqing walked in front expressionlessly. She did not know what he was thinking, but his mind was in a daze. Amidst the chaos, there seemed to be countless noisy voices scheming. Suddenly, Meng Qingxue's broken voice came from behind. Yenqing, are you willing to give me a minute? I have something to tell you. She almost used all her strength to shout this sentence. Mu Yenqing stopped in his tracks but did not turn around. Meng Qingxue could no longer walk. She held her knees and panted slightly, but as she panted, tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. Is it fun to misinterpret my words? Can't you tell what's said in anger, what's envious, and what's serious? She raised her head abruptly. All right, then let me tell you. Hating you is said in anger. Saying that Yun Shishir is very happy is envious. Saying, I love you, and I miss you is the most serious thing I've ever said to you. Mu Yenqing, I don't know why I fell in love with you. After thinking about it for so long, I vaguely realized that other than you, there's probably no one else in this world who dotes on me more than you, right? As Meng Qingxue spoke, her eyes turned redder and tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. Mu Yenqing's heart throbbed painfully when he heard her words. It was as if something was tearing it apart. My life seems to have always been bleak and without light. I left home and went to the capital to seek a career, but I also went astray. When I entered a modeling agency, I was lucky to meet you. Finally, there was someone who could hold me in the palm of his hand, take good care of me, and dote on me. You know that in this world, other than you, there's probably no one else who would tolerate and dote on me so much. I tried my best to be careful and obedient so that you wouldn't get tired of me. I love you. In this relationship, I must be the most humble one. My attitude must be as low as the dust. I knew that such humility wouldn't earn anyone's respect. Even I was degrading myself. Or maybe I was too naive. I accidentally bumped into love and was so happy that I didn't care about my future life. I didn't even confirm if you really loved me and if we would have a future. I was like a moth flying into a flame and thought that this was love. After a pause, Meng Qingxue smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, you don't seem to love me that much. You're always busy, you never answer my calls, you always have a lot of social engagements, and you always have a lot of women. Many nights, the one by your side isn't me, but someone else's woman. I've been sad, I've been disappointed, I've been jealous, I've been envious. I've also had the impulse to leave you and fly to a faraway place. There will always be someone who loves me more than you, who will tolerate me more. At the very least, someone who truly cares about me, and only me. Meng Qingxue sucked in a deep breath of cold air as tears streamed down her cheeks uncontrollably. But every time I packed my luggage and was about to leave you, I looked back at the apartment and saw our shadows in every corner. Only then did I know that I can't lose you at all. I can't leave you. Perhaps you don't feel this way because you're so proud. It's not impossible for you to live without anyone. But I'm different. I'm different. I can't leave you. Chapter 28-26. She bit her trembling lips and sobbed. But I'm actually like a parasite on your body. It's as if I'll go extinct if I leave you. I know that I'm weak and lowly like this, but I still want you to know that I won't be able to live if I leave you. Mu Yanqing, what do I have to do for you to truly love me for once? Will you only know how I feel about you if I cut out my heart and hold it in front of you? This way, will you cherish me a little more? Mu Yanqing's face suddenly turned pale. Her words were heart-wrenching, every word weeping blood. What kind of situation had she been forced into that she would say such things? Mu Yanqing's heart ached, only to see Meng Qingxue suddenly clutching her stomach with an ugly expression. Beads of sweat rolled down her face. It hurts. It hurts. She suddenly clutched her stomach and arched her body slightly like a shrimp in pain. Yanqing, my stomach hurts. It hurts. Mu Yanqing's mind went blank when he saw her in this state. He immediately rushed toward her anxiously. However, just as he reached her, Meng Qingxue smiled, looked up, and hugged him fiercely. I told myself that as long as you rushed toward me at once, I'd set my mind on you for the rest of my life. She hugged him tightly. He walked toward her without thinking, which meant that he cared about her. Just based on this point alone, she had set her mind on him. The only time she took the initiative to grasp him was because she had set her mind on this man. No one was perfect. Mu Yanqing was not a perfect man. However, there were too many things about him that were worth her paranoia. He was the only man who was willing to give up his wealth for her. She was willing to humble herself a little more, just to hold on to him. Mu Yanqing immediately reacted. It turned out that she was pretending to be in pain just now. It was not a stomachache. It was just a smoke screen. You! He could not help but feel a little angry. Meng Qingxue looked up at him and said word by word, Yanqing, even if you have nothing, I won't be afraid. I only want you. You're enough. I only want to be with you. Mu Yanqing's face froze as he stared at her in disbelief. Meng Qingxue had always been a reserved woman. She rarely spoke sweet nothings or acted coquettishly. She also rarely played any sweet tricks with him. This was the first time she had lied to him. Yanqing, I've already sworn in my heart that no matter what, you belong to me. I'll take you back at all costs and keep you by my side. Meng Qingxue paused for a moment before continuing. I know that I'm not outstanding or good enough. I don't have Song Enya's background and family background, but I'll work hard, okay? I will work hard to become an outstanding woman until that day comes. Wait for me, okay? Mu Yanqing pursed his lips and shook his head with a smile. He ruffled her hair lovingly and pulled her gently into his embrace. No need. When Meng Qingxue heard this, she said angrily, What? You don't even want to give me a chance to work hard? Mu Yanqing could not help but laugh. You don't have to compromise. As long as you acknowledge me and I acknowledge you, you don't have to fight or fight. Just be yourself. Because I'm yours and you're mine. Chapter 28-27. Qingxue, I swear. I don't have any feelings for Song Enya, nor do I have any feelings for other women. I've decided on you. I'm willing to protect you and only you. No one will snatch me away, and no one can snatch me away. I've decided on you. Mu Yanqing's eyes revealed a rare tenderness. He gently kissed her forehead, then slowly kissed the corners of her eyes. He kissed away her warm tears and suddenly sealed her lips. Yanqing, I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Meng Qingxue hugged his shoulders and confessed affectionately. You're in all of my imagination for the future. I've also thought of giving up on you, but I can't. I can't. Mu Yanqing's heart ached. He suddenly felt that he really owed this woman so much. He always made her cry, always made her wait, and always made her wait for nothing. At first, he thought that she was like those other women and did not seem to be particularly special. However, it was not until the day he lost her that he seemed to have lost his mind and searched for her all over the city. Only then did he realize that she had unknowingly occupied such an important place in his heart. At first, he was with her only because of her looks and figure, which could give him a fresh feeling. However, as time passed, her obedience and her sensibility no longer gave him so much burden. In fact, every time he returned to her side, he felt the warmth of returning home. Later, when the passion turned cold, love slowly lost its novelty and became a habit. He was used to waking up with her in his arms. He was used to having her by his side when he was frustrated. He was used to her gentle and soft words. He was used to her warm embrace. Only then did he realize how important she was. His family background and the environment he grew up in had destined him to be arrogant and insecure. He was cautious at every step and did not have any sense of belonging. Therefore, he had always been obsessed with building a fortress and sealing himself in it. In fact, he was unbelievably fragile. He admitted that he was not as outstanding as Mu Yaja. That kind of man was too perfect and too dazzling. He kept chasing after him, but in the end, he was still reduced to a foil and a joke. He couldn't accept it. That was why he was deeply hurt by her careless words. Qingxue, I love you. I really love you. These 3 words had been brewing in his heart for a long time, but every time he wanted to confess his feelings, he was too embarrassed to say it, so he forced himself back down. But at this moment, no matter what, he was going to reveal everything to her. I want to give you the best life. Even if I have to resort to any means, I will ensure that you will never have to worry about food and clothing. Mu Yanqing gently caressed her sideburns and smiled. Don't think too much about it, and I don't need you to fight for it. I'm yours. I belong to you, Meng Qingxue only cared about her tears. She hugged him tightly and cried until she couldn't speak. If I cut out my heart and held it in front of you, would you know what kind of feelings I have for you? This way, will you cherish me a little more? What can I do to make you cherish me even more? Her words still echoed in his ears. Mu Yanqing's heart felt like it was being pierced by a needle as he hugged her even tighter. From now on, I will cherish you even more. Chapter 28:28. Chu Ho was startled awake by a soft rustling sound. She had always been a light sleeper. Probably because of her profession, she was more alert than ordinary people. Hence, even in her deep sleep, she could detect even the slightest movement. Chu Ho suddenly opened her eyes. In the darkness, she saw Meng Qingxue tiptoeing into the ward. Behind her, Mu Yanqing strode in. The leather shoes on his feet were very hard, so when they landed on the ground, they made a loud sound. Meng Qingxue did not realize that Chu Ho had woken up. She thought that Chu Ho was still asleep, so she turned around and whispered to Mu Yanqing, "Shoo! Keep your voice down and don't make such a big noise. She's still resting. Such a small noise won't wake her up at all." Meng Qingxue silently weighed the pros and cons in her heart for a long time. She was still worried about leaving Chu Ho alone in the hospital, so she said to Mu Yanqing, "Why don't you go back first? I'll stay here tonight to accompany Chu Ho. After all, she just had surgery and needs someone to take care of her." Mu Yanqing said gloomily, "Qingxue, you're pregnant. You need someone to take care of you. The doctor wants you to rest in bed more. Otherwise. But let's go back and rest tonight. Tomorrow, I'll hire 2 nannies to take turns taking care of her." After Mu Yanqing said that, he paused and asked her, "Is that okay? How can I be at ease leaving you alone in the hospital?" Meng Qingxue pursed her lips. Mu Yanqing pulled Meng Qingxue into his arms without any explanation and kissed her forehead heavily. There was a hint of grievance and resentment in his voice. "Are you really not going back with me? How long has it been since we slept together?" Meng Qingxue was stunned and her face quickly turned hot. She frowned and said, "You, don't talk nonsense." However, he continued, "How is this nonsense? Qing Shui, I'm already used to seeing you when I wake up in the morning. But when you left at that time, I couldn't sleep well, and couldn't sleep well. I finally found you and waited for you to come back, but in the end, you're guarding a woman who's neither your relative nor your friend. You're busy working for her. Have you really never considered my feelings?" "What do you mean by unrelated?" Meng Qingxue said unhappily. "Chu Ho treats me very well. In my heart, I treat her as my biological sister." "You're being too biased." Mu Yanqing snorted. "Instead of accompanying your man, you're actually accompanying a woman." How can I accompany you?" Meng Qingshue's face burned even hotter. She lowered her head and mumbled, "I'm already pregnant. How can I sleep with you?" "What are you thinking?" The man was amused by her scruples. "No matter how crazy I am, I'll never do anything to a pregnant woman." "You're pregnant. How could I do anything to you? I just want to hug you to sleep. Can't I do that?" Meng Qingxue was doubtful of his words. "Is that really what you're thinking?" "Yes, I swear." "Then, all right." Meng Qingxue finally agreed. Mu Yanqing smiled in satisfaction, hugged the back of her neck, and pecked her lips. Meng Qingxue placed the supper she had bought on the table and let Mu Yanqing hug her as they left. Chapter 28-29. What kind of lovey-dovey behavior was this? In the middle of the night, she was caught off guard and they were showing off their affection. Supper? What's the point of eating supper? She was already full from all the PDA. So, these two were here to deliver PDA? However, Chu Ho did not have the awareness of being single. He did not feel much about other people showing off their love. It was just that he was woken up in the middle of the night while sleeping soundly. He gritted his teeth in hatred. Why? Did the two of them make up? Earlier, a certain woman was still crying as if the sky was about to collapse. In her dreams, she actually heard Meng Qingxue crying secretly in a corner. Now, everything was fine? Chu Ho furrowed his brows but did not think too much about it. He turned over and fell into a deep sleep again. The day after he brought Meng Qingxue back, Mu Yanqing bought an apartment next to Dishing Building. It was a few hundred meters away and could be reached in a few steps. Initially, he had thought of buying her a villa when he came back and then settling her down well. He would give her a few nannies, servants, and housekeepers so that she could take care of her pregnancy in peace. However, after thinking about it, if he were to buy a villa, it would definitely be far away. Very few villas in the capital were in the city center. Usually, they were in areas with good feng shui, especially in the area around Yunshan-Shi, where large areas of villas were developed. However, if he really arranged for her to live in a place so far away, it would be inconvenient for him to get stuck in a traffic jam. If anything happened to him, she would be far away from the hospital and his company. Therefore, after serious consideration, he finally decided to settle her in a high-end apartment next to Dishing Building. Changchang Mansion was probably the most high-end apartment in this area. It was divided into small and large apartments. The large apartment was a large duplex apartment with a total of more than 300 square meters. Mu Yanqing decided to buy an apartment. The apartment was exquisitely renovated and could be moved in with a bag. He even carefully sent someone to measure the formaldehyde and there was no problem. In the end, he chose a duplex apartment to separate the moving area from the scenic area. When he was working, he would not disturb her. Don't underestimate this 300 square meters. As it was located in the bustling city center, Mu Yanqing spent more than 20 million yuan on a duplex apartment like this. It was close and convenient. Downstairs was a department store, a hospital, a supermarket, and a market. Everything was available. Meng Qingxue did not know about this. So as soon as she pushed open the door to the apartment, she was greeted with a luxurious sight. Crystal chandeliers, stylish murals, high-end staircases and expensive carpets. All of this was simply inconceivable. I bought it before. I bought it for your pregnancy. Mu Yanqing held her hand as they walked in and closed the door. Looking at the incredulous look on her face, he felt great satisfaction in his heart. Do you like it? I do, Meng Qingxue mumbled. But I can't believe that this is for me. Who else could it be if not for you? If you like, you can stay here even after you give birth to a child. He suddenly held her hand. There are a total of 3 master bedrooms, 2 guest rooms, and a nursery. A nursery. Meng Qingxue could not help but be surprised. Chapter 28:30. This is the baby's room. Meng Qingxue carefully poked her head in to take a look. The baby's room was specially made. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the wallpaper. As this apartment was exquisitely renovated, it was already renovated when it was handed over. The developer would not know if the owner was a boy or a girl. Hence, the wallpaper was made of pink and light blue overlapping. It had the dreamy feel of a little princess and the childlike feel of a little prince. There was a cradle, a small wardrobe, and a mountain of toys. This apartment building was developed by Wan Ku. It had to be said that as a top real estate developer, Wan Ku was extremely meticulous in terms of details. Meng Qingxue was stunned. It was as if she could imagine a baby in diapers exploring this vast world curiously, crawling on the carpet with its hands and feet, and then suddenly jumping into the mountain of furry toys, like a little mouse falling into a millet jar. It was so happy that it didn't want to go home. She could not help but be amused by the scene in her imagination and burst into laughter. Mu Yanqing was a little puzzled. Why are you laughing for no reason? It's nothing. I just thought of something fun. If you like this place, then take good care of your baby. Mu Yanqing slowly walked to the living room and said, It's very quiet here, and it's difficult for ordinary people to come and go. Unless it's the owner who lives here or has a special pass. He turned around and saw Meng Qingxue walking out of the room. His lips curled into a smile. However, I've already instructed the front desk in advance that no matter who wants to see you, they have to give me a call in advance. They can only enter after getting my permission. Are you worried that Li Mengya will find her way here? Meng Qingxue asked doubtfully. Mu Yanqing nodded. I won't give her a chance to get close to you again. Meng Qingxue smiled. All of a sudden, something came to her mind. She furrowed her brows and asked tentatively, Will you come to accompany me often? Or was it still like before? When he was busy, he would forget about her. When he remembered, he would come over to accompany her. Mu Yanqing smiled when he heard this. Why do you think I bought this place? Why? Because. He slowly approached her and whispered into her ear, Because this is my home too. He saw her dazed expression and felt that she looked really stupid and cute. He couldn't help but scratch her nose. Are you stupid? I said, I'll live here with you too. This place is very close to Mu Group. I can reach the building just by walking a few steps to and from work. Meng Qingxue widened her eyes in surprise. What did you say? You said, You're also living here with me? I'm worried about leaving you alone. Mu Yanqing added, Plus, the Mu family's matters are still unclear, so I'm not in the mood to stay in the main residence. I'll stay here and accompany you so that I can take care of you. Are you going to take care of me? Meng Qingxue snickered disapprovingly. Young Master Mu, you know how to take care of people? Humph, I wonder if you'll be willing to accompany me to the night market if I'm hungry in the middle of the night and want to eat supper. I'm willing. Humph, that's just a nice way of saying it. When the time comes, I'm not sure. Meng Qingxue obviously did not believe him. Chapter 28:31. All right, if you have the time to argue, hurry up and take a shower. It's getting late. Pregnant women should rest early. Mu Yanqing urged her. Meng Qingxue was not used to his concern. In the past, he was not good with words, let alone expressing himself. Sometimes, a lot of nice words were often stored in the heart, but never spoken out loud. However, after experiencing this night, he felt a lot of emotions. He also knew that there were some things that weren't that shameful to say. Words of concern, words of love, words of apology if he did something wrong. If these words were not said and kept in his heart, there would be no meaning. He clearly liked her, but if she was sad, because of the pride in his bones, it would be meaningless if he did not go forward to hug her. Mu Yanqing coaxed Meng Qingxue to take a shower. After the two of them took a shower, they went to bed to rest. There was something worth mentioning here. The moment Meng Qingxue entered the bedroom, she fell in love with the design of the master bedroom. It was warm and elegant. It felt like home and had a luxurious taste. This apartment must have cost tens of millions. The next day, when Meng Qingxue arrived, Chu Ho was not in the ward. She was frightened and quickly asked the nurse at the nurse's desk. The nurse at the nurse's desk said that the patient had put on a jacket and left early in the morning in high spirits. She probably went for a walk in the hospital's back garden, a nurse said suspiciously. Previously, whenever she had lunch or dinner, she would go for a walk downstairs in the ward building. If it weren't for the fact that she's a young lady, we would all say that a girl like her doesn't like to play with her phone or have any entertainment. She's completely like an old cadre. The corners of Meng Qingshue's eyes twitched violently. It turned out that she was not the only one who thought so. Chu Ho was indeed too old cadre. Lying in bed, other than reading the newspaper, she read some books. The hospital would provide some books. Although it was limited, it could be considered a great way to pass the time. To her surprise, Chu Ho's English was jaw-dropping. There were 3 English novels in the hospital. Because the hospital occasionally received foreign patients, they would also provide some foreign books. One day, she saw Chu He holding a foreign novel and reading it seriously. She asked half-jokingly, "Can you understand the English in these books?" "English used to be my mother tongue," Chu Ho said. There were too many mysteries surrounding Chu Ho. But she had never taken the initiative to mention it to her. A public phone booth. Chu Ho held the phone and dialed an international number. After a while, the call was connected. Before the other side could speak, Chu Ho spoke first. "Lin Mu, it's me." "You are?" "Vermilion Bird." Hiss. That person couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. How is this possible? "Vermilion Bird. Officer Vermilion Bird has already. I'm not dead yet. Are you really the Vermilion Bird?" "But..." Chu Ho interrupted him impatiently. "It's only been a few years. Can't you recognize my voice?" The other side was obviously shaken. After all, the voice and tone were exactly the same. Being able to call out his name at once made him believe that this mysterious call was from the Vermilion Bird who had been missing for a few years. Chapter 2832. Lin Mu was a member of the Interpol Dispatch Committee and worked in the capital. Therefore, if Chu Ho wanted some help, the first person she thought of was him. "I'm in the hospital now and need some things and help. Are you willing to provide them to me?" After hanging up the phone and walking out of the phone booth, Meng Qingxue finally found her beside the phone booth and immediately called out her name, "Chu Ho." Chu Ho heard her voice and looked in the direction of the sound, only to see Meng Qingxue running toward her with Mu Yanqing behind her. She raised her eyebrows and straightened her body. When she saw Meng Qingxue panting from running, she could not help but chide her. "Why are you in such a hurry? It's not like I hide whenever I see you. Why are you walking around instead of recuperating in the ward?" Chu Ho smiled. "I've almost recovered. Once the stitches are removed, I can be discharged." Mu Yanqing was a little surprised when he heard this. "You've just undergone surgery. How can you be so sure that you've almost recovered?" Chu Ho glanced at him and smiled. "I'm an Interpol officer. I've suffered countless injuries. I know very well how good my recovery ability is. The doctors don't know as well as I do." Meng Qingxue did not believe her and immediately brought Chu Ho to the doctor's office to ask about her condition. After a round of examination, the doctor was completely shocked. Meng Qingxue thought that her condition had worsened and hurriedly asked. The doctor was extremely surprised. "You recovered so quickly?" "Yes." "Is this a natural physique?" The doctor was still a little doubtful. Even if she was an immortal, she would not be able to recover so quickly, right? Moreover, it was obvious that she was immortal. An ordinary person would need at least a week to recover after such a surgery, and half a month to be able to walk freely. She insisted on walking the day after the surgery. It had only been a few days since the surgery, but she was actually walking outside the hospital. The doctor found it hard to believe. Meng Qingxue was finally relieved after hearing what the doctor said. However, she was still shocked by Chu Ho's abnormal physique. "Chu Ho, how did your body grow? If I had such a good physique like yours, I wouldn't be in such a sorry state after getting pregnant." Chu Ho smiled. "When I was pregnant, I was soaked in seawater for 2 days and 1 night, but nothing happened. Everyone's physique is different." When Meng Qingxue heard this, she was stunned for a moment. Then she pulled her to the side. "Do you really remember everything?" "Yes." "Then can I ask you something? Someone said that when you were discovered, you drifted over from the sea. What exactly happened?" Chu-ho was stunned. After a moment of silence he suddenly said, "The car accidentally fell into the sea. There was emergency equipment in the car. I relied on these equipment and drifted on the sea for a night. Perhaps it's lucky that it didn't drift too far away. Anyway, it was a coincidence that the villagers found me later." Chu-ho, your life is really too lucky. You were able to escape from a car that fell into the sea. Meng Qingxue sighed from the bottom of her heart. Chu-ho walked out of the doctor's office and turned to look at Meng Qingxue and Mu Yanqing. He then smiled and asked slowly, "Have the two of you made up?" Chapter 28:33. Mu Yanqing's expression turned awkward. Meng Qingxue smiled, held Mu Yanqing's arm, and nodded at her. "Chu-ho, thank you. You're the one who taught me that if I love someone deeply, I must fight for it. Yanqing and I have reconciled, and we've decided that no matter what happens in the future, we'll face it together." Chu-ho looked at her and then at Mu Yanqing. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "It's good that we know each other's feelings. Although this man is quite unreliable in my opinion, he's still a good man. If he's really turned over a new leaf, it's also a good thing." "You." Mu Yanqing frowned, clearly unhappy with her belittling him. "Since we've reconciled, you don't have to stay in the hospital all day long like an orphan." After a pause, Chu-ho continued, "You heard what the doctor said. He said that I'm recovering well, so you don't have to worry. Can you take care of yourself?" Meng Qingxue was still a little worried. "Of course." Chu-ho frowned. "You're pregnant now. If you stay here, I'll have to take care of you." Meng Qingxue blushed at his words and felt a little guilty. "Don't you find it boring to be alone?" "No," Chu-ho said. "I like peace and quiet." "Then, you have to take good care of yourself." After Meng Qingxue and Chu-ho bade farewell, Chu-ho did not return to the ward directly. Instead, he went to a coffee shop at the agreed location. She and Lin Mu agreed to meet at the coffee shop. Considering that she was unfamiliar with the place, Lin Mu specially chose a coffee shop that was very close to the hospital. Chu-ho asked for directions and arrived after walking a street. She entered the coffee shop first and waited for half an hour before Lin Mu finally arrived. Lin Mu was the main person in charge of Interpol's Asian region. To be precise, he was also a very important contact person. When Chu-ho infiltrated the Gu family as a spy, it was also Lin Mu who pulled the strings. No matter how big or small, everything was arranged for her. Lin Mu had just stepped into the coffee shop and looked around. When Chu-ho saw him, he immediately raised his hand to greet him. When he saw Chu-ho for the first time, even though she had changed slightly in the past 5 years, Lin Mu still recognized her immediately. He was so excited that his body began to tremble. He immediately ran over and sat down in front of the booth. The first thing he did was to size her up. After looking for a long time, Lin Mu's eyes couldn't help turning red as he excitedly said, "This is great. Officer, you're actually still alive." When the bad news came, everyone at the headquarters was in disbelief. In their eyes, you are the irreplaceable best intelligence agent. You will not fail easily. Bad news? Chu-ho asked expressionlessly. Who was the one who sent the news of my death back to the headquarters? Actually, it's not news of death. Lin Mu took a deep breath and then summarized some of the things that happened 5 years ago. When Chu-ho infiltrated the Gu family, he had indeed sent a lot of information back to the headquarters. With this information, the headquarters had some information on Gu Jinglian's whereabouts. Therefore, in many matters, Gu Jinglian suffered a lot. Gu Jinglian was not a fool. After a while, he quickly realized that there was a spy around him. No one knew how he suspected Chu-ho. Chapter 28:34. After several incidents, Chu-ho realized that Gu Jinglian was already suspicious of her. She knew this man very well. Once he was suspicious of a subordinate, he would use many methods to test them. Once he was convicted, he would kill them without mercy. At that time, the headquarters sent her back and she tried to escape from him. Who would have thought? Chu-ho was ordered to be killed by Gu Jinglian. If she was alive, he wanted to see her. If she was dead, he wanted to see her corpse. The car fell into the sea and she disappeared without a trace. The entire Gu family reported that Chu-ho had been killed and this news was also sent back to the headquarters. The headquarters did not dare to jump to conclusions and listed Chu-ho as missing. 2 years later, Chu-ho still did not make any movements. So Lu Yanwei was filled with grief and had no choice but to announce her death. The headquarters held a grand memorial ceremony for her. But they did not know that they had made a mistake. She was not dead. Lin Mu did not know how to deal with this situation. Then what do you plan to do now? Lin Mu said and suddenly noticed the gauze on her head. He was a little shocked. Officer, are you injured? No. Chu-ho touched the gauze and concisely said, this is a surgical wound. I just had an operation. Lin Mu quickly asked, what happened? There was a blood clot in my head. I had an operation. Oh, so it's like that. Lin Mu nodded and returned to the previous topic. Then you plan to go back to the headquarters? Lin Mu, I have a child. Lin Mu was stunned for a moment. His facial muscles twitched for a long time before he made a ha sound. It was clear that he did not understand. What do you mean? 5 years ago, when I left the Gu family, I was pregnant. Chu-ho paused and curled her lips. Because of that accident, I fell into the sea. I escaped with my life, but I accidentally lost my memory. After I found out that I was pregnant, I did not know what to do. I did not want to abort the child and gave birth to it. Child. Where did the child come from? Lin Mu suddenly had a bad premonition. It can't be. Chu-ho knew what he was thinking. He nodded and said, yes, this child is Gu Jinglian's. How is this possible? Lin Mu suddenly slapped the table and stood up, startling the waiter who was about to serve the coffee. He said in disbelief, how did you get pregnant? That Gu Jinglian. He forced you. It's always been women throwing themselves at him. He won't force any woman. Then, that didn't make sense. Gu Jinglian did not force her, and with her personality, she would never stick to Gu Jinglian. That child, where did he come from? Lin Mu really couldn't understand. In fact, the reason why he was so excited was because of Chu-ho. They had been colleagues for a few years, and they had always kept in touch with each other. He had a good impression of this beautiful but tough girl. Back then, Lin Mu had joined the criminal police because of Chu-ho's recommendation. Therefore, he did have a good impression of Chu-ho. He also had a bit of love for her. It could be said that Vermilion Bird was the goddess in his heart and was irreplaceable. However, back then, when the news of Vermilion Bird's death came, it killed this love. Chapter 28:35. Therefore, when Chu-ho said that she was pregnant with Gu Jinglian's child, Lin Mu could not accept it. Sir, what's going on? Chu-ho smiled bitterly. There's no need to look into the past. Now that I've found you, I only hope that you can help me with one thing. What is it? Lin Mu patted his chest and said, just tell me. As long as you say it, I'll go through fire and water for you. Chu-ho sat up straight and leaned closer to him. He said calmly, I want a gun. What? I want a pistol, grenades, and some armed equipment. If possible, it's best to give me a night vision device. I need it. What do you want to do? Chu-ho raised his eyebrows. Nothing. My child is now in Gu Jinglian's hands. Naturally, I want to save him. How can you be so sure that the child is in Gu Jinglian's hands? Chu-ho said, when the child went missing, I called the police. The police officer said that the child was taken home by his biological father. Biological father? Who else could it be other than him? The child must be in his hands. However, I can't meet him face to face and ask him for the child. He will never return the child to me. Lin Mu's expression was a little complicated. He suddenly said, Sir, since the child is already in the Gu family, then you don't have to bring the child back. Why? Chu-ho did not think much of it. He glanced at him in confusion. Why do you say that? That child. That child. Lin Mu thought for a long time and suddenly clenched his fists. He gathered his courage and said, Since that child is yours and Gu Jinglian's, do you know Gu Jinglian's identity? He's the leader of the underworld and you're the anti-underworld inspector. Don't forget your own identity. To you, this child is a great humiliation. You. Shut up. Chu-ho suddenly stood up and leaned forward. He grabbed his collar and said fiercely, I'm warning you. This is my child, my only family member.
He's not the disgrace you're talking about. Do you understand? No. Lin Mu's face turned white as he stared at her in fear. Sir, why are you so fixated on a child? Even if the child was gone, there would be another one. But, if you take this child with you, it may not be good for you. You're such an outstanding woman. You should be worthy of an even more outstanding man. As for Gu Jinglian, who was he? He's cruel and numb, vicious and merciless. A child born with such a man. My child does not need anyone to point fingers at him. Chu Ho couldn't take it anymore and interrupted him. You just need to understand one thing. Now, I'm asking you for a gun. Are you going to give it to me or not? I'm looking for you because of our past, and because of our friendship. If you can find a way to get it for me, I will be most grateful. If you don't give it to me, I'll find another way. Lin Mu tightly clenched his teeth and sucked in a breath of cold air. He slowly said, I'll think of a way for you. I'll give you an answer at 10 p.m. All right, I'll wait for your reply. After he finished speaking, Chu Ho suddenly stood up and was about to leave. When Lin Mu saw this, he hurriedly reached out to grab her hand. However, He seemed to have consciously avoided his touch and walked away. Chapter 28:36. In the evening, Lin Mu replied to her text. There was a location attached to the text. The text said that he had already prepared the item she wanted, but because of the special nature of the item, it could only be handed over in a remote area. Chu Ho opened the location. After confirming the location, she replied, "Prepare a few more bullets." After half a minute, Lin Mu sent a puzzled expression. "You're planning on going alone?" I'll go with you." "No need. You being able to help me here is already enough." There was no more news from Lin Mu. The time was set at 10 in the evening. At 9, Chu Ho changed into her normal clothes and set out. When she left the hospital, the sky was already dark. She specially chose a set of dark clothes and tightened her cap before heading to the appointed location. She stopped a taxi and gave the address. The taxi quickly sped off to the destination. After arriving at the location, Chu Ho stood under the street sign and waited. Lin Mu was very punctual and arrived 5 minutes early. He drove a black Audi and parked the car under the street sign. He got out of the car and walked in front of her. He nervously said, "Chu Ho, can you think about it again? Don't go." "Don't go?" Chu Ho raised her eyebrows. She was a little confused. "Chu Ho, if the headquarters receives news that you haven't died and are still alive, as long as you return to the headquarters, with your outstanding military achievements, you will definitely be promoted. Your future is limitless and you are an excellent police officer. If you properly stick to your post, your future will be immeasurable. If the child stays by Gu Jinglian's side, he will be well taken care of. Gu Jinglian is a cruel man, but even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs. Since it is his son, he will treat him well. He can't even wait to love him." Chu Ho's face was a little ugly. "Enough, officer. I said enough." Chu Ho clenched her fists. Without a doubt, if Lin Mu said another word of advice, she would definitely fight back. "You just need to give the item to me and it's fine." "But..." Lin Mu was still unwilling and bit his lip. Chu Ho lost his patience. He glanced at the trunk and suddenly asked, "The things are in the trunk, right?" "Yes." "Open it." Lin Mu looked at her deeply, then slowly took out his car keys. He pressed the button and the trunk suddenly opened. Chu Ho walked over and looked at the goods in the trunk. There were guns, ammunition, infrared detectors, and even night vision goggles. Everything she wanted, it was all prepared. She had never thought of it, but as a former logistics worker, Lin Mu had thought of it for her. Chu Ho's expression finally relaxed. He picked up a pistol. The heavy weight made her feel extremely at ease. How long had it been since he felt this safe? When she was in the Yenching County Police Station, because of the police system and because she was not an official police officer, she could not be equipped with a gun. The only thing she could carry was a baton. Even if it was a gun, it would at most be an air gun. The heavy weight in her hand gave her a great sense of security. It was familiar but also strange. How long had it been since she touched a gun? Chapter 28:37. She was born in a war-torn country. That country was in turmoil and constant wars. Because her family was Chinese, in that era, the international community looked down on Asians.
Her father's personality was naturally weak. He chose to endure the bullying and oppression. Under such oppression, he struggled at death's door. Therefore, from a young age, she deeply experienced that weakness would only lead to endless bullying and coercion. She originally thought that her life would continue like this. However, until that year, in May, that country was incited by other countries and began to ostracize the H people. In the military riot, her father died under the gun and her mother was stripped naked by the locals. After humiliating her, her hands and feet were handcuffed and she was dragged through the streets in a car. On such a rocky road, a living person was dragged like a beast into a bloody mess. It was too horrible to look at. Until her mother died, she did not see her for the last time. In that riot, the H people died and were injured. But she did not choose to submit. The 7-year-old her chose to resist in the face of adversity. She was dragged into a cellar by a local ruffian. When she was about to be raped, she fiercely bit him and took the iron rod from his waist. She did not know where she got her strength from, but she actually knocked the ruffian unconscious. When she escaped from the cellar, out of instinct, she and a group of people arrived at the dock and boarded the rescue ship to M country. In one night, her family was destroyed and she was homeless. How could she call it a foreign land? When she arrived in M country, she was accepted by a humanitarian organization. Then, she was assigned to a special agent organization for training. The circumstances of her childhood made her deeply understand that weakness would only lead to bullying. Only by being strong could she be respected. Chu-ho collected her thoughts and changed into the clothes that Lin Mu prepared for her. The clothes had a bulletproof layer. Naturally, this layer could not withstand bullets at close range. Military boots that could hide a dagger. Infrared detector. She put the pistol on her waist and took out more than 100 bullets. She separately tied them to her boots and waist belt. Then she put away the equipment one by one and closed the trunk. Lin Mu hurried forward. Chu-ho, you really don't want to reconsider? Does the headquarters know that I'm still alive? Chu-ho suddenly asked. Lin Mu was startled and quickly shook his head. It was too rushed. I didn't have time to report. No need to report. Chu-ho casually wiped the gun with a cloth and lightly said, Vermilion Bird is already dead. The current me, I have my own name. Why? Lin Mu was in disbelief. The name Vermilion Bird is synonymous with supreme glory. You used to value the glory. How can you say that you want to give up the name Vermilion Bird so? The glory that you once regarded, you don't care? Chu-ho's hand movements suddenly froze. Chapter 28:38. Whether it's fame or fortune, it's all in the past. Chu-ho suddenly interrupted him. Lin Mu was startled. Chu-ho calmly said, I'm just tired and want to rest. Although I'm not old enough to retire yet, I've seen a lot of bullets since I was young. I've never imagined that I could have a peaceful life. But Lin Mu, do you know? In these 5 years, I've lost all my memories, but I've lived a carefree life, a happy life. I have a sensible and well-behaved son. In these 5 years, I've never dreamed that I could be like an ordinary person, waking up every morning, quietly eating breakfast, and then going to work. When I get home, I have a well-behaved son. After dinner, I'll hold his little hand and go for a walk in the fields. As Chu-ho spoke, he actually laughed softly. Although there are many things that aren't satisfactory, compared to my previous life of being a police officer, it's much more blissful. In the past, I didn't even dare to dream that I would have my own family, my own child. Do you know? I named him Xiao Bao. There's no special meaning behind it. When he was born, his face was wrinkled and thin, but I felt that life was a miracle. When he grew up, he was chubby, white, and tender. I thought of many names, but in the end, I still called him Xiao Bao because he was my baby. Lin Mu silently listened. Chu-ho continued, I really liked that kind of life. If I could, I'd rather live as Chu-ho instead of using the name Vermilion Bird. Sir? Chu-ho turned around and glanced at him. He suddenly smiled. This kind of feeling, the current you can't understand. It's getting late. Chu-ho looked at the sky and curled his lips. Send me to the Gu family's main residence. I want to see him as soon as possible. Lin Mu finally gave up. The two of them got in the car and Lin Mu started the car. He took a deep breath and stepped on the accelerator. Gu family's residence. Xiao Bao was coaxed to sleep. For the past few days, Gu Jinglian had arranged for him to rest in his bedroom. After these few days of getting along with each other, Xiaobao Chu had also eliminated the estrangement between them and made up with him. He was finally willing to show him an innocent smile, no longer like before, when he was in front of him. He was arrogant and looked down on him. Even now, he still called him uncle, uncle. Gu Jinglian did not rush him. He felt that it would be better to wait until the child adapted to the environment and let nature take its course. Adults get used to it faster than children. Gu Jinglian quickly adapted to his role as a new father. Gradually, he realized that he was a newbie stay-at-home dad. At the very least, when facing Xiaobao, the sharpness on his body would always be subtly restrained. Although there were many times when Xiaobao would be mischievous by his side when he was busy with work, it would also make him unhappy. He would also be angry at him, glare at him, yell at him, but no matter how annoyed he was, he could not bear to touch him. It was like a lion roaring at a mischievous cub. Although he was glaring at him, he would not really slap him. Chapter 28:39. Therefore, no matter how fiercely he glared at him, the little guy did not seem to have any awareness. He even climbed onto his body provocatively, making funny faces at him and sticking out his tongue. Gu Jinglian was always amused by his funny little expression. Uncle said that Mommy will come to find me soon, but I've been waiting for a long time. Don't tell me that she still hasn't found me by the time Xiaobao's hair turns white? Gu Jinglian raised his eyebrows. He was slightly displeased that the little guy mentioned that woman again. A certain man was jealous. He snorted coldly and suddenly threw out a historical question. Do you like Mommy more or Uncle more? Of course it's Mommy. Before he could finish his sentence, Gu Jinglian heard the word, Mommy, and his face suddenly sank to the bottom. Chu Xiaobao saw that his expression was not right and immediately changed the topic. His eyes darted around and then he said with a smile, Of course it's Uncle more. Good boy. The man was satisfied and reached out to gently ruffle his hair. But Xiaobao really misses Mommy. Chu Xiaobao muttered. Is Mommy playing hide-and-seek with me? She's deliberately hiding in a corner and deliberately not coming to find Xiaobao. She doesn't want you anymore. Gu Jinglian deliberately scared him. When Chu Xiaobao heard this, his face was full of disbelief. That's impossible. Mommy won't abandon me. Oh, are you so sure? Gu Jinglian seemed to be very keen on provoking their mother-son relationship. He snorted coldly. If she doesn't abandon you, then why hasn't she come to find you for so long? It's probably because she hates Uncle. Baby Chu blurted out of the blue. Gu Jinglian's face darkened. What do you mean? In the past, when Xiaobao saw that other children had fathers, Xiaobao was very puzzled. Why do they all have fathers but I don't? Chu Xiaobao said and even showed a puzzled expression. After a pause, he continued. Later, Xiaobao asked Mommy why Xiaobao didn't have a father. Gu Jinglian could not help but be interested and said, What did she say? Xiaobao looked at his expression carefully and then blurted out. Mommy said that Daddy died early. What? Daddy died early. Gu Jinglian seemed to have been struck by lightning and his face was charred black. She said that I died early. Yeah, that's what he said. He said something about the grass on his grave being taller than me. Gu Jinglian's fists. This woman actually dared to use such despicable words to fool the child. He died early. Xiaobao did not care at all. His words and actions were undoubtedly betraying his mother. He continued to complain, I only asked how Daddy died. Gu Jinglian looked at him questioningly again. What did your mommy say? Xiaobao said plausibly, Mommy said that Daddy was hit by a car when he went out. Gu Jinglian was speechless. Hit by a car when he went out. How could she come up with such a ridiculous story? He slammed the table. Bull**T. Xiaobao was frightened by Gu Jinglian's foul language. He shrank back and looked up to see that Gu Jinglian's originally exquisite and handsome face was now extremely gloomy. He suddenly realized that he had said something wrong. Uncle, don't be angry. Chapter 28:40. When Chu Xiaobao heard this, he did not buy it on the spot. No way. If you dare to chop Mommy into pieces, I'll. When Gu Jinglian heard this, he asked provocatively, You'll what? I'll. When Chu Xiaobao saw the murderous look in Gu Jinglian's eyes, He was instantly terrified. He gulped and said timidly, "I'll settle this with you when I grow up." "Humph. At least you know what's good for you." He even knew that he was so small that even if they were arm wrestling, he would be flattened and rounded with just one finger. Gu Jinglian ravaged his little face heavily. At that moment, Uncle Fu pushed open the door and walked in. When he saw that Xiao Bao was still in Gu Jinglian's arms, he immediately walked over and hugged him. "Xiao Bao, it's getting late. It's time to rest." "No." Xiao Bao's face fell immediately. He pulled a long face sullenly. The mention of sleep seemed to kill him. He nestled in Gu Jinglian's arms and stretched out his arms and legs, looking extremely comfortable. While Gu Jinglian was busy flipping through the dossiers, he would hang on to him like a little hamster and munch on snacks non-stop while watching the hottest fantasy dramas. Destiny Chronicles. He liked the beautiful young lady in the drama, so he was very happy watching it. His eyes stared fixedly at the picturesque person on the screen without blinking. When he heard that he was going to sleep, the little guy felt uncomfortable all over. "You don't want to sleep. It's still early." Uncle Fu glared at him. "It's still early? It's already past 10 o'clock. It's time to sleep early. You'll only grow taller if you sleep early." Uncle Fu used the same words that he used to trick other children to lure him. However, Xiao Bao did not fall for it. He continued to pester and fool around in Gu Jinglian's arms, unwilling to sleep. Uncle Fu looked at this scene, and for some reason, he was on tenterhooks. It seemed that in his memory, other than the cat that Gu Jinglian had raised a few years ago, no other creature had dared to be so lawless and reckless in his arms. Gu Jinglian's attitude towards Chu Xiaobao had been quite gentle these days. It was probably because there had been nothing annoying in the past few days, and there had been no trouble in the business. This was because Gu Jinglian was rather patient in dealing with his unbridled nonsense. However, with Gu Jinglian's indulgence, Xiao Bao seemed to be a little arrogant. Gu Jinglian treated him well probably because his fatherly instincts had finally been awakened. As for this little guy, Gu Jinglian looked left and right and found him pleasing to the eye. "Let him watch for a while longer," Gu Jinglian said. When Fu Bo heard this, he pondered for a while before he mustered up his courage and said, "Master, you can't just let a child do whatever he wants and spoil him like this. You can't spoil him like this." "Who's spoiling him?" Gu Jinglian snorted arrogantly. "It doesn't matter if he sleeps a little later." Uncle Fu immediately explained, the younger the child, the more he should get a good night's sleep. Otherwise, not only will he not grow taller, but his physical fitness will also deteriorate very quickly. Gu Jinglian narrowed his eyes slightly. "Oh, is there such a saying?" Uncle Fu nodded heavily. Gu Jinglian then said, "Then hurry up and take him to bed." Chapter 28:41. Let me look at it for a while more. I want to see that pretty lady. Go to sleep. Gu Jinglian pulled a long face. Xiao Baochu finally knew how to behave. He did not dare to make a sound and allowed Uncle Fu to carry him to sleep. Gu Jinglian sat quietly in the study and quietly flipped through the documents. Until now, the Gu family still kept accounts in the form of written books. In modern times, they were called financial statements. However, they continued the ancient tradition. Whether it was the casino or other special transactions, they were mainly recorded in this way. Gu Jinglian had learned how to keep accounts since he was young. Therefore, his calligraphy was very beautiful. He quietly read the documents until 2 o'clock in the morning. The night was dark, but the wind was still, and the clouds were gradually fading. After Chu Ho disguised herself, she entered the Gu family's back door through the secret underground passage. There was a secret passage in the Gu family's house with hidden mechanisms. This was the fastest way for insiders to enter the house from the outside world. Of course, the mechanism was set up very carefully. Those who were not from the Gu family did not know about these secret passages. Most people entered from the main entrance, but the entrance was heavily guarded. No matter how well you disguised yourself, they could tell at a glance whether you were an outsider or a member of the Gu family. Chu Ho naturally would not choose the main entrance. It was just that the secret passage had many password locks. She remembered the password locks. However, those passwords were from the Gu family a few years ago. She did not know if the Gu family had changed them in the past few years. Based on her understanding of Gu Jinglian, the password locks must be changed regularly. The passwords she remembered were probably already invalid. However, Even if she did not remember, it did not matter. After all, she was from the intelligence department and had excellent investigative skills. Although the password locks of the Gu family were complicated, she could easily crack them if she was given time. Chu-Ho went to the mechanical lock and studied it. The password had indeed been changed. She pondered for a while. This password lock was not very difficult, and she could easily crack it. However, when he reached the second gate, the password for the second mechanism lock seemed to be very difficult to decipher. In order to crack this password, Chu-Ho spent more than half an hour. By the time the password was cracked, she was already drenched in cold sweat. If the password was entered incorrectly, the signal would be connected to the logistics of the Gu family. When the time came, the door would open, and she would be greeted by more than 100 elites from the Gu clan. Chu-Ho fumbled his way into the Gu family's main residence through a secret passage. After exiting the secret passage, it was the backyard of the Gu family. The backyard was a few courtyards away from Gu Jinglian's house. Chu-Ho looked up. What she saw was a rockery, flowing water, and pavilions. These were the best cover. It could be seen that many things in the back garden had been renovated in the past few years. Before this, she remembered that the back garden was filled with large patches of begonia flowers. But now, the begonia flowers no longer existed. Green bamboo, pine trees, pear blossoms, and roses. There was no trace of the begonia flowers in the garden. She used to love the begonia flowers in the garden the most. Every time the spring breeze blew, the flowers would be as pink as peaches, and the bouquets of begonia flowers would bloom proudly. At a glance, they were extremely beautiful and shocking. She did not have any preference for flowers. The only thing she liked was the begonia flowers. Chapter 28:42. Who's there? Suddenly, a man's cold voice came from behind her. Chu-Ho stopped in her tracks. Her back stiffened for a moment before she suddenly turned around. A man stood behind her, looking at her back suspiciously. He felt that this woman was too unfamiliar. There weren't many women in the Gu family. There weren't many women in the business to begin with, and those who could enter the main family could be counted on one hand. Therefore, it was easy for an unfamiliar woman to suddenly barge into the Gu family's main residence to attract attention. Chu-Ho glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and said casually, "What's the matter? What's your name?" The man asked again, "Why haven't I seen you in the main residence before?" "It's natural that you haven't seen me before. Because I've always been by Old Master's side. It's natural that you don't know me." "Is that so?" The man was still suspicious. Recently, Gu Jinglian's attitude towards women had been indifferent. It was probably because he had too many things to worry about in the Gu family in the past few months. He couldn't be distracted at all, nor did he have the heart to be distracted. Could it be someone from the main family? Impossible. As long as it was someone from the main family, even if he wasn't familiar with them, he should have seen them before. But he had never seen this woman before. Chu-Ho saw that he was extremely vigilant, so she sighed helplessly and said, "It's fine if you suspect me, but there are some things that I need you to pass to him on my behalf, okay?" "What things?" Chu-Ho looked around vigilantly and sighed. "Why don't you come over and take it? This thing is easy to break." The man was completely curious. He didn't know what exactly it was. It wasn't that he didn't suspect that this fellow would play some tricks. However, he thought that this was the main residence of the Gu family. Who would have the ability to cause trouble in the Gu family's territory? With such a fearless thought, the man approached her. Chu-Ho put her hand into her pocket. Just as the man straightened his neck and looked over to size her up, unexpectedly, Chu-Ho suddenly took out a dagger from her pocket. She turned her head abruptly and aimed the sharp end of the dagger at the man's heart, almost stabbing it ruthlessly into his chest. Puff! Blood gushed out. The man subconsciously opened his mouth and wanted to scream, but Chu-Ho took a step forward and covered his mouth, then viciously dislocated his neck. The man's head tilted to the side, and he immediately fainted. However, with such injuries, he would not wake up for a while. He would not die from excessive blood loss until someone found out that he had done it for her. Chu-Ho set a time limit for herself. She would throw this man in a corner. When he was discovered and caused a commotion, if she still hadn't found the person she was looking for, she wouldn't stay any longer and would take advantage of the chaos to leave. Chu-Ho fumbled his way into Gu Jinglian's house. As the main courtyard of the main residence, Gu Jinglian's style was evident everywhere. At first glance, the design of the house was very cold. Just like Gu Jinglian, it was gloomy and cold, but also arrogant and unreasonable. Against the moonlight, the lake water was desolate and bleak. Green bamboo and green pine were his favorite plants. After so many years they had not changed. When she reached the steps, Chu-ho walked up the steps and entered the house. She vaguely identified the direction and slowly felt her way towards Gu Jinglian's bedroom. She suspected that Xiao Bao would probably be arranged to rest in his bedroom. She glanced at the time. Chapter 28:43. At this time, that man was probably still in the study. He always slept very late and would only get out of bed at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. However, he would wake up as soon as the sun rose. He would be busy the entire morning and sleep for another 3 hours during his lunch break. This was an opportunity. If she wasn't wrong, Xiao Bao was probably sleeping soundly on his bed at this moment. Chu-ho leaned closer to the door and carefully listened to the sounds in the room. She could faintly hear the sound of snoring. It wasn't heavy, but it wasn't light either. It was the kind of snoring that belonged to a child. This kind of snoring sound was very familiar to Chu-ho. Xiao Bao. It was Xiao Bao. He was in this room. Chu-ho was so emotional that her eyes turned red. She suddenly grabbed the door handle and twisted it gently. The room wasn't locked. She entered the room smoothly and silently locked the door. The room was very big. It was the master bedroom, a Chinese-style courtyard suite. The entire Gu residence was built in the Chinese style. Even the rooms were in the classic Chinese style. Chu-ho looked around. The furnishings in the room were slightly different from what she remembered. Indeed, the changes that 5 years brought to a person were incomparably huge. She passed through the arched door and slowly walked to the master bedroom. On the big bed, Xiao Bao's limbs were spread out. He was sleeping soundly. The weather had been a little cold for the past 2 days, and he had the habit of kicking off his blanket in the middle of the night. Probably because he had caught a slight cold, when he was sleeping soundly, snot bubbles were coming out of his small nostrils. Chu-hee, who was originally tense from head to toe due to her vigilance, could not help but burst into laughter at this scene. This guy. How could he sleep so peacefully? When she thought of this, she felt a little unbalanced in her heart. In order to find him, she had been obsessed with recovering as soon as possible. Now that she had taken great risks to sneak into the Gu residence, she didn't know that this little guy was sleeping peacefully here. However, the only thing that comforted her was that at least she could confirm that this stubborn little fellow had not suffered much in the Gu family. She had originally thought that this little guy was noisy. If he made Gu Jinglian uncomfortable, he would definitely not be polite to him. She did not expect that with Gu Jinglian's personality, he would be able to tolerate this fellow. She must have caused a huge ruckus at the Gu residence these past few days. This Gu Jinglian also did not deport him? Chu-ho didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She walked over and patted his chubby little face. With a muffled groan, she lowered her voice and said, "Xiao Bao." Woo! Xiao Bao was immersed in his beautiful dream. Being disturbed at this moment, he narrowed his eyes and immediately reached out to slap her hand, muttering, "Don't be noisy. La. Stinking Xiao Bao." Chu-ho was a little angry. He couldn't help but flick his face in an attempt to wake him up. It seemed that waking him up was too rough, and she felt a little sorry for him. Although Xiao Bao was only 5 years old, he already had a serious temper when he woke up. When she accidentally woke him up in the middle of the night, he would sit up in bed with a dirty face. Then, he would have an expression of wanting to cry but no tears would come out. First, he would throw the pillow in frustration, then he would cry out in dissatisfaction, as if he was venting his displeasure from being woken up. Chapter 28:44. She pinched his cheeks again and was about to reach out to hug him when he suddenly stopped her. Behind her, an ice-cold body stuck close to her. Chu-ho's expression instantly stiffened. She was shocked and was about to turn around when she felt a cold and hard object pressing against her back. Based on her many years of experience, she immediately realized that this hard object was no other than a gun. She could even easily sense the cold air coming from the muzzle of the gun. Who was it? Chu-ho broke out in a cold sweat. There was no other reason. When she entered the room, there was no one else in the room except for Xiao Bao, who was sleeping soundly on the bed. She had locked the door just now. Even if the person could unlock it from the outside, wouldn't it make some noise? However, this person not only did not make any noise, but she also did not notice when he was standing behind her. Her vigilance was very high, and her facial features were very sensitive, but when this man stood behind her, she did not notice at all. Chu-ho did not dare to move, for fear that the man behind her would pull the trigger if she moved. She could not figure out this man's identity. Perhaps it was because she was too nervous that she lost the ability to make the first judgment when it came to strangers. However, after a moment of calmness, she suddenly smelled a faint fragrance. The fragrance of orchids? It was a somewhat familiar fragrance. Just as she was trying to figure out this man's identity, Gu Jinglian's cold voice sounded above her head. "I thought you wouldn't come." Chu-ho's body suddenly trembled. This voice had been her curse for countless nights. Even in the 5 years when she lost her memory, she could always hear this voice in her dreams whenever she had trouble sleeping. It was like a demon, bewitching her heart. It was him. Gu Jinglian. Chu-hee sucked in a breath of cold air and her back stiffened. "It's you? Why can't it be me?" Gu Jinglian raised his eyebrows and snorted. "This is my room. No one has the right to set foot here except me." Chu-ho gritted his teeth. "I clearly locked the door. If you came in, why didn't you make any noise?" "Because from the beginning to the end, I have been in this room and have never left." "What?" Gu Jinglian smirked coldly. "I knew you'd come." Chu-ho's judgment of him had probably always been his biggest mistake. This man had always been the most unpredictable one. When she was still an anti-mafia inspector, she had been ordered to stay by his side. As a spy, she had indeed stolen a lot of unfavorable evidence from him and submitted it to the headquarters. However, it was only later that she realized that the information she had secretly smuggled back to the headquarters was just a rarity to him. Those pieces of evidence were not enough to accuse him of a crime. She suddenly realized that perhaps, from a long time ago, he had already sensed her disloyalty and started to suspect her background and identity. As for the so-called evidence, it was nothing more than playing hard to get. It was to test her and find out more about her background. You. Chapter 28:45. When Chu-ho woke up again, she felt a chill all over her body. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked around, only to find that she was in a cold and damp cellar. Cellar. Although it was called a cellar, it was more accurate to say that this was the Gu family's underground prison. It was specially used to imprison those traitors who had betrayed the Gu family. There were many torture devices in the prison. When Chu-ho first entered the Gu family, she was lucky enough to see the torture devices of the Gu family. She did not know how cruel the torture methods of the Manchurian period were. She only saw with her own eyes that these ancient torture devices of the Gu family were enough to force even a tight-lipped person to give up here, wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. Chu-ho subconsciously wanted to stand up, but just as she stood up, her ankle was dragged back by a force. She was caught off guard and almost fell forward to the ground. When she turned around to look, she was shocked to find that her 4 limbs were tightly shackled by chains. Her wrists were suspended high in the air by the chains. Her ankles were also tightly wrapped by the chains. Damn it! Chu-ho bit her lips tightly and stared at the bruises on her hands caused by the chains. The muscles on her face tightened. "I said long ago that the Gu family is not a place where you can come and go as you please." Not far away, Gu Jinglian's evil voice sounded again. Chu-ho raised her head and stared in the direction of the voice with a pair of red eyes. She saw him sitting elegantly on the chair with the official's hat. His legs were elegantly crossed, and one of his hands was casually fiddling with the jade ring on his finger. His leisurely appearance was inexplicably compatible with the gloomy and cold cellar at this moment. Chu-ho had never been afraid of anyone. Except for Gu Jinglian. There was a kind of aura on him that made people feel intimidated. Even if he did not do anything or say anything, just sitting there, his entire body exuded a hair-raising aura. Especially the coldness that flashed by the corners of his almond-shaped eyes. It was really frightening. If Gu Jinglian was to be described as an animal, it must be a cold-blooded creature like a snake. Just his gaze alone would make anyone feel as if there was a cold snake coiled around their shoulders. The pair of snake eyes would expand as it stared at them covetously. The snake's body coiled tighter and tighter, enough to give people the illusion of suffocation. At this moment, Gu Jinglian's eyes fell on her body. Chu-ho's breath gradually rose and fell violently, unable to calm down. "What do you want?" Chu-ho asked through gritted teeth. "How dare you barge into the Gu residence alone?" The corners of Gu Jinglian's lips curled up coldly as he slowly retorted, "I'm the one who should be asking you what you want. My goal is very clear. Chu-ho did not beat around the bush and simply negotiated with him. He said word by word, "I'm here to bring Xiaobao away." "Xiaobao is my son." Gu Jinglian calmly revealed the truth. Chu-ho was stunned, then sneered coldly. "This is my son. My blood flows in his body. Similarly, my blood flows in his body too." After Gu Jinglian finished speaking, his brows furrowed slightly, as if he was a little conflicted. "We seem to have a dispute over custody rights?" "Listen, I can let you go, but I have a condition." Chapter 2846. Gu Jinglian slowly got up, walked to Chu-ho's side, and knelt down on one knee. Chu-ho couldn't help but be attracted by a piece of paper in his hand. She didn't know when, but there was an agreement in his hand. He spread the agreement on the ground and slowly pushed it in front of her. He said meaningfully, "Sign this agreement and I'll let you go." "What is this?" Chu-ho was bewildered. How could this man be so kind as to let her go? What was this so-called agreement about? She didn't even have to think about it. It probably wasn't a good agreement. Gu Jinglian saw that she was sizing him up. His lips curled up coldly, and he said almost cruelly, "I've already drafted this agreement, but I still need you to sign it for it to be valid." "What exactly is this agreement?" Chu-ho looked him straight in the eye. "If you sign it, the agreement about you giving up Xiaobao's custody rights will officially take effect." As Gu Jinglian spoke, he gently pushed the Indonesian agreement that his subordinate had presented to her. "It's not enough to just sign it. You also need to put your fingerprint on it." "Gu Jinglian." Chu-ho gritted her teeth and roared, "Don't even think about it. Xiaobao is my son. Don't even think about taking him away from me." "You're not willing?" Gu Jinglian's voice suddenly turned cold. His gaze was no longer as gentle as before. A few cold rays burst from the corners of his eyes, and there was a hint of threat. "I won't sign this agreement," Chu-ho said resolutely. "He's my flesh and blood. You're giving me this lousy piece of paper and using my freedom to threaten me to give up Xiaobao's custody rights? Don't you think it's ridiculous?" "Dream on." Teske. Gu Jinglian was a little annoyed by her yelling. He frowned coldly and sized her up a few times. He lamented, "Red Lotus, compared to 5 years ago, you don't seem to have changed at all." "How haven't I changed?" "Still so stubborn." Gu Jinglian slowly stood up and looked at her condescendingly. He suddenly bent down and grabbed her chin. His slender fingers squeezed her face tightly. "What right do you have to go against me now? If you know what's good for you, then sign this agreement obediently. For the sake of the child, I will let bygones be bygones." "Let bygones be bygones." Chu-ho sucked in a few breaths of cold air as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He wanted to laugh, but there was a lump in his throat. "Gu Jinglian, isn't it enough that you've ruined my life? I will never allow you to ruin Xiaobao's life again." "I ruined your life." Gu Jinglian looked at him expressionlessly. "Red Lotus, you're the one who ruined your life, not me. If you want me to give up Xiaobao's custody rights and hand him over to you." Chu-ho's chest heaved up and down for a while. He suddenly said through gritted teeth, "I'd rather kill him with my own hands when he was still in my womb than let him fall into your hands." Gu Jinglian's cold eyes shrank violently. Suddenly, the corners of his lips twitched. The curve was neither deep nor shallow, but it was obvious that he was really angry. "You have a lot of backbone." He paused and looked around. Then, his gaze fell on the torture equipment at the side. He sneered and said, "I'd like to see how long your backbone can last." Chapter 2847. After leaving these cold words, Gu Jinglian swaggered off, leaving Chu-ho alone in the cellar. She was chained up in the cold, hopeless, and dark. Gu Jinglian left this order only if she was willing to relent and sign the agreement. Chu-ho soon heard the sound of metal clashing. She turned her head and saw a few tall men coming towards her. These men were all trained by Gu Jinglian. Not to mention that they had inherited Gu Jinglian's ruthlessness, they would definitely not show her any mercy. "Pa!" A sound was heard. A long whip hit her back hard. Chu-hee let out a muffled groan. The sudden pain almost made her lose consciousness for a few seconds. The man wielding the whip had quite a bit of strength in his hand. The whip landed heavily on her back, leaving behind a deep bloody mark. Soon, a long tear appeared on the thin material of his clothes. The skin that was stained with blood was soon exposed to the air. The man was not in a hurry to whip her a second time. Instead, he took a basin of water from the side and poured it over her back. Walala! Ah! Chu-ho could not help but cry out in pain. Immediately after, she gritted her teeth fiercely, but her whole body started to twitch uncontrollably. What was this? Was this salt water? The brand new wound that was caused by the whip was suddenly soaked in salt water. This kind of pain made her mind blank. Chu-ho gritted her teeth. She gritted her teeth and her gaze fell on the agreement spread out in front of her. It was already wet with salt water. Xiao Bao's innocent smile could not help but appear in front of her eyes. Her heart suddenly tightened. Slap! Another lash landed heavily on her back. Chu-ho groaned in pain. Even the muscles on her face could not help but twitch. This kind of pain, even if she gritted her teeth, was not something that could be easily overcome with a few words. What was even more difficult to describe was the feeling of being a prisoner. Gu Jinglian. This vicious and merciless man. She had never thought that this man would use such a cruel method to try and take Xiao Bao away from her. Impossible. She would never let go. It was even more impossible for him to sign such a humiliating contract. Pa! Ah! Chu-ho finally couldn't hold it in any longer. He cried out in pain, his voice hoarse. Perhaps it was because she had just undergone a major surgery and was anxious to find Xiao Bao, so she tried her best to recover. In fact, she had not fully recovered. At this moment, with her old illness and new injuries, she fainted from the pain. Chu-ho's vision went black. His body leaned forward and fell face first onto the ground. Fainted. The man with the whip was surprised. Don't tell me he died from the collision? Another person stepped forward and kicked her a few times, but there was no reaction. It had only been 3 lashes, but he had already fainted. When he saw that this woman's mouth was so tough, he wondered how capable she was. However, this was also within reason. Don't underestimate these 3 lashes. A normal person would not be able to survive even 1 lash. However, she had endured 3 lashes. This was already not simple. Moreover, he had used a lot of strength and did not hold back. She would definitely not be able to withstand it. The man directly took a basin of salt water, grabbed her hair, and splashed it on her head. Chapter 28:48. Chu-ho opened her eyes, which were bloodshot. Pain. So painful. Because of the great pain, her eyeballs couldn't move very well. Are you going to sign it or not? The person beside her waved the whip in front of her. It seemed to be a threat, but it also seemed to be a threat. It was as if she said no, the whip would come at her again in the next second. However, Chu-hee's lips quivered. She did not nod obediently and beg for mercy like a pug as he wished. Instead, she spat out 2 words coldly. Don't even think about it. Ha! The person sneered and flicked the tail of the whip. It landed on the ground with a paw sound, which echoed continuously. Woman, you're really stubborn. Boss has instructed that tonight. We'll stop until you sign. Why do you want to die? If you can't even take these 3 lashes, how are you going to deal with the rest? Chu-ho glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and retorted sarcastically. You want to kill me or cut me up, don't you think? Either I die, or I take the child away. There's no third option. Are you really not afraid of death? The man was so angry that his face turned ashen. Before his master left, he had specifically instructed that she must sign it. His task was to force this woman to sign the agreement. If he couldn't complete his task, then the next person to be punished would be him. This woman was so stubborn. He was afraid that even if he whipped her again and again, there wouldn't be any changes. He couldn't possibly kill her, right? His master had also instructed him to keep her alive. If he killed her like this, wouldn't his master skin him and pull out his tendons? Thinking of this, the man couldn't keep up his airs. He couldn't predict whether this woman would die after a few more lashes. It had to be said that a person's life was very fragile at times. It was often a matter of a single thought. Hence, the man summoned his underling and asked him to quickly report the situation. The subordinate was also a quick-witted person. Seeing that Chu-ho was on the verge of death and on the verge of collapse, he was afraid that he could not hold on any longer and hurriedly ran into the study. Gu Jinglian was reading a book when his subordinate rushed into the study and said anxiously, Master, that woman refused to sign and was whipped 3 times. She looks very weak. I'm afraid she can't take it anymore. If this continues, you'll definitely be beaten to death. Gu Jinglian frowned. She still refuses to sign? Yes. The lackey nodded vigorously. She fainted after being whipped 3 times. We went up to take a look and found that the bandage on her head was removed. It was a surgical scar, and the stitches hadn't been removed yet. From the looks of it, she had just undergone surgery and had yet to recover. These 3 whips had been ruthlessly lashed out. If this continued and she still refused to sign, she would be useless. If this goes on, someone will die. Gu Jinglian clenched his fists in anger. She's really stubborn. I'm afraid it's because of her maternal instincts. The lackey sighed. After all, asking a mother to give up her child's custody is crueler than any torture. Are you speaking up for her? Gu Jinglian glanced at him suspiciously. He immediately defended himself. It's no use. It's just that. I feel that this girl is quite pitiful. She's a little stubborn, but it's hard to dislike her. Chapter 28:49. Yes. The underling lowered his head in grievance. Observing his expression, he carefully probed. Then, Master, do you think we should continue? Just as Gu Jinglian was hesitating, Chu Xiaobao's cries suddenly came from the master bedroom. He suddenly got up and walked into the bedroom with a guarded expression. When he turned on the wall lamp, he saw that Xiaobao had woken up from his dream. He sat on the bed, hugging the blanket and sobbing pitifully. He must have dreamed of something scary, so when he woke up, he was so scared that he wailed loudly. He used the blanket to wipe his tears as he sobbed. Gu Jinglian walked over and sat on the side of the bed. He asked in a low voice, "Why are you crying?" Xiaobao. Xiaobao dreamed of Mommy. Chu Xiaobao rubbed his wet eyes and sobbed. Xiaobao dreamed that Mommy was standing by the bed and touching my face. But I don't know what happened, but in the blink of an eye, she disappeared. I chased after her and realized that she was walking away without looking back. No matter how I called her, she didn't seem to hear me. She didn't even turn around to look at me. Speaking of the pain, Chu Xiaobao cried even more pitifully. I chased after her with all my might, but it felt like the road was so long that I couldn't catch up. She didn't even look back and walked further and further away. When I opened my eyes, I realized that I was back on the bed. Sob, sob, sob. Does Mommy not want me anymore? Does she not want me anymore? Gu Jinglian frowned. What was that saying again? It was called, Mother and Son Are Connected by Heart. In the past, he had thought that this saying sounded too pretentious. But now, he had seen it for himself. Mother and son were connected by heart. It was really strange. He immediately opened his mouth and said something that wasn't really coaxing. His tone was still gentle. You're dreaming. Uncle. Chu Xiaobao immediately cried out. A huge sense of unease engulfed him. Will Mommy really not want me anymore? If she doesn't want you, then she doesn't want you. Gu Jinglian immediately expressed his stance. Uncle wants you. No. Chu Xiaobao cried even harder. Mommy, you can't abandon me. Why do you keep saying Mom? Can't you follow Uncle? Gu Jinglian was a little unhappy. This was a terrible feeling. He didn't realize that he cared a lot about what the child thought of him. However, it was obvious that in Xiaobao's heart, Chu Ho's position was more important. Naturally, he was dissatisfied. Chu Xiaobao muttered, You're not my father. He opened his mouth, but the words, I'm your father didn't come out. Due to his pride, it was impossible for him to admit defeat to a child. Thus he changed the topic and asked, How am I not? Mom didn't say you were. Chu Xiaobao acted like a mommy's boy. If Mommy says you are, then you are. If Mommy says you aren't, then you aren't. Gu Jinglian was so angry that his face darkened. This child was only 5 years old, but he was already so biased towards that woman. How could this be? However, he didn't think about it in another way. Since this child was born, he and Chu Ho had depended on each other. If he didn't stick to Chu Ho, who else could he stick to? This nominal father of his had left a very bad impression in his heart at first. It couldn't be helped that the child didn't want to get close to him. But who was Gu Jinglian? Chapter 28:50. Chu Xiaobao was crying for his mother, and even Uncle Fu couldn't coax him. Gu Jinglian couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Don't cry. If you cry again, you won't be able to see her again." Chu Xiaobao sobbed and asked innocently, "If I don't cry, can I see my mother?" "As long as you don't cry." Chu Xiaobao immediately nodded. Xiaobao won't cry. It was a promise. Gu Jinglian walked out of the bedroom and immediately ordered, "Go and clean that woman up." Uncle Fu was confused when he heard this. He had just heard that an audacious woman had barged into the Gu residence. Old Master had sent this woman to the cellar. He had heard that this woman was Xiao Bao's biological mother, but he hadn't had the time to find out the whole story. "The woman you're talking about, could it be that you're referring to the woman you locked in the cellar?" "Yes," Gu Jinglian said with disgust. "Xiao Bao is crying for his mother. Go and clean her up. Don't get her covered in blood." "Yes, I got it." Uncle Fu trembled in fear as he responded. He watched as Gu Jinglian left the room. He didn't know where he was going. Naturally, he didn't dare to ask about his whereabouts. On the way to the cellar, Uncle Fu's imagination ran wild. He wondered what kind of woman could be pregnant with Old Master's child. It should be a beautiful woman, right? Old Master kept a close eye on women. The contraceptive measures were well taken, and such things would never happen. Old Master had a bad temper, and he didn't have much patience for women. This character wasn't born this way, but had been cultivated in the Gu family since he was young. The violent environment had instilled in him an extremely sinister and perverse character. However, Uncle Fu knew that Old Master's nature wasn't bad, but he had always been the one to call the wind and summon the rain. He was used to being spoiled. If he wanted the moon in the sky, no one would dare to pluck the stars for him. Just like that, he became a man of his word. His personality was very cold, or perhaps he had a soft side, but he was stingy with his words. He would never allow himself to show too much tenderness. Firstly, it was because of his identity. He was the supreme leader of the Gu clan. As the head of the Gu clan, he had to conform to the image of this identity. Secondly, there were many pairs of eyes in the Gu family watching them closely. Just like the leader of a pride, only by becoming the most ruthless could he be respected by everyone. However, he was still a mortal after all. In the end, he revealed his soft-hearted side. When he walked to the cellar, the few people guarding Chu Ho saw that he had arrived. It was as if they had been granted amnesty. "Uncle Fu, you're here. What did Master say? How are they?" Uncle Fu asked first. "Uncle Fu, why don't you take a look first? Just now, he fainted again. We don't know what to do." Master said to bring him back to his room first. As Uncle Fu spoke, he walked to Chu Ho's side and lowered his body to look at her. "This person can't be dead, right?" Uncle Fu was a little worried. He saw that she was covered in wounds. Her hair was messy and covered her face. There was a pool of salt water under her body. There were 3 whip marks on her back. They were very eye-catching and her flesh was badly mutilated. This was a girl. Why was she so heavy-handed? "She's still breathing, but I was a little too heavy-handed just now. I don't know." As he spoke, Uncle Fu had already flipped her over. It didn't matter if she didn't flip over. Chapter 28:51. It didn't matter if she didn't turn over. When she turned over, Uncle Fu was shocked. "Red Lotus." He blurted out the name in shock. How could it be her? Or was she Xiao Bao's biological mother? Uncle Fu had a deep impression of this name. 5 years ago, Red Lotus had a high status in the Gu family. There was no other reason than that she was the closest person to Gu Jinglian in the entire Gu family, other than him. How could this be? How could Old Master allow Red Lotus to be pregnant with his child? Moreover, Red Lotus was an undercover agent of the Interpol. She was a traitor of the Gu family. Old Master would never allow her to live. It was unbelievable. He looked at the mess on her body again. Beside her hand, there was a letter of confirmation wet with salt water. Uncle Fu picked it up and looked at it again and again. It was a letter of confirmation about giving up custody of Xiao Bao Chu. Old Master has instructed us to use whatever method we have until she signs it. The person beside him immediately explained, "But we've already used up all our methods. This woman is very stubborn. Even in this state, she hasn't given in. Her character is indeed like that." Uncle Fu was not surprised.
All right, let's not talk about anything else. Let's carry her into the guest room first. She's so dirty. Are we going to carry her into the room directly? This is Old Master's order. Uncle Fu snorted coldly. Are you doubting my words? No. Since it's Old Master's order, shouldn't we do as he says? His subordinates did not dare to delay and immediately carried her away. Uncle Fu sent a few maids into the room. One of them was responsible for removing Chu-Ho's clothes, while the other was responsible for cleaning her body and disinfecting the wounds on her body. A doctor came and examined her. He was so shocked that he kept shaking his head. Uncle Fu immediately asked what had happened. However, the doctor said, "This girl just had an operation." What? Look at the gauze on her head. Do you see this scar? I haven't put it away properly. I haven't even removed the thread yet. The doctor paused for a moment and shook his head helplessly. The old injury plus the new injury has greatly damaged his vitality. I'm afraid he won't be able to get out of bed for at least half a month. So serious? Uncle Fu was shocked. Yes. The doctor nodded his head heavily. This lady had surgery on her head. Even though it was a minimally invasive surgery, it still damages her vitality. Looking at this scar, it probably hasn't been long since the surgery. With these new injuries, if she doesn't rest well for a while, her body will definitely collapse in the future. I got it. Uncle Fu nodded. Then prescribe some medicine for her to recuperate her body. All right. The doctor prescribed some medicine and handed it to Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu immediately sent someone to get the medicine. The Gu family had a pharmacy and a private medical school. They mainly focused on traditional Chinese medicine. When Gu Jinglian was young, his body was not in good health. He had also used traditional Chinese medicine to recuperate. Hence, Gu Jinglian believed in traditional Chinese medicine very much. In the entire capital, the best doctors of traditional Chinese medicine were all settled in the Gu family's main residence. After getting the medicine, Uncle Fu immediately sent someone to decoct it. However, Chu-Ho's body was full of injuries. He was afraid that she wouldn't be able to wake up for a while. Chapter 2852. However, this coma lasted for half a month, and he did not open his eyes. Of course, this was all in the future. Ever since Chu-Ho fell into a long coma, Gu Jinglian assigned a few people to take turns to watch over him. Xiao Bao, on the other hand, was left to the nanny to take care of. However, he did not know if the little guy was lovesick. Ever since he woke up from that nightmare, he did not eat well, and he always talked in his sleep in a daze. It was probably because he missed his mother. After all, he had never been separated from Chu-Ho for such a long time. However, the sad thing was that Xiao Bao did not know that Chu-Ho was lying quietly on the bed next to his room. No one knew when he would wake up. Uncle Fu invited the doctor over 3 times. After all, he had not woken up for so long, and it was not a good idea. If he continued to be in a coma, how was he going to explain it to Old Master? The doctor came to take a look and did a series of tests. In the end, the conclusion was also inconclusive. He only said that Chu-Ho's body was severely damaged, probably because he had been suffering from old and new injuries all this time. If the human body was compared to a machine, the human body was also operated by various precise parts. For example, with the passage of time, the parts of a computer would age, and the system would become sluggish. Perhaps due to collisions during use, the internal parts would also be damaged to varying degrees. It was the same for the human body. Chu-Ho had received training when he was very young. During training, it was inevitable that he would get injured. In addition, he had been constantly honed in his career as a secret agent and a criminal police officer. He had suffered countless injuries of various sizes. There were bone fractures, dagger wounds, and bullet wounds. There were 2 gunshot wounds on her back. There was a 5-centimeter scar on the side of her waist. She had been slashed by a Nepalese army knife when she was in close combat with a mercenary during a mission. At that time, she had lost a lot of blood. With her amazing willpower, she managed to survive until rescue arrived. There were too many old injuries, and her vitality was greatly damaged. Therefore, once she collapsed, she would really collapse. It would take a long time for her to recover. Uncle Fu's heart ached when he heard that. He looked at the person lying quietly on the bed, but he did not know that this girl had accumulated so many injuries. Just 1 week later, The filming for Extreme Youth was completed. After 4 months, the shooting of the 30-episode youth idol drama came to an end. After the filming of the 26th episode had just ended, the director happily announced that the copyright had been exclusively bought out by the largest video website, PPTVI. Just based on the popularity of Gu Xingze and Yun Shirshir, the price of the broadcasting rights alone had already reached 9 figures, setting a new record. Although this kind of theme was a little unpopular, it did not affect the investors' expectations for the ratings. After all, Gu Xingze was the main lead in the movie, which meant that his popularity was guaranteed. Gu Xingze and Yun Shirshir were known as the 2 most beautiful women in the entertainment industry. No matter how bad the viewership ratings were, they could still recoup their capital. If he became popular, he would be able to earn a lot of money. Because of PPTVI's exclusive buyout, many television stations were unable to fight for the simulcast rights, which was a pity. Chapter 2853. After the filming ended, the crew held a grand celebration party. In order to promote the show, the entire crew created a popular variety show. The show was called Ace Intelligence Bureau. It was an entertainment show where rising stars competed with variety shows. Once it was released, the ratings were very high. Surprisingly, Gu Xingze also participated in the recording of the show. Gu Xingze rarely accepted variety shows. Because of his celebrity status, he definitely wouldn't end a variety show that had a poor reputation and childish style. There were many high-quality variety shows, but because of the conflicting schedules, he really did not have the energy to deal with these noisy variety shows. Other than some interview shows, Ace Intelligence Bureau was probably the only variety show he accepted after The Love Diary. The script was quickly written and distributed to everyone. Variety shows had scripts. The artists on the show just had to memorize the script and know the content of each segment in advance. In this era of entertainment, even if they did not have any works or popularity, as long as they had enough variety shows and the ability to react on the spot, many A-listers could even gain a lot of passers-by through variety shows. Previously, there was a model who participated in a sports reality show. Because of her strong sense of variety, her value skyrocketed. From 200,000 yuan, her appearance fee was now in the millions. With this amazing popularity, she took on many movies and TV series. Although her acting skills were difficult to describe, it was not that she was not a professional, nor was she born to be an actress. No matter how good the director was, she did not have the aura of an actress. But even so, with the popularity she gained from variety shows, her annual income from endorsements was close to tens of millions. 8:00 p.m. All the main creators were in place and the recording of the show officially started. Every segment was very unique. After the hot opening dance, it was time for the game segment. The game segments were nothing more than games that were popular and could highlight the sense of variety and attraction. For example, 2 people and 3 people, or you draw and I guess. Although Yun Shirshir did not do many of these, she was tired of watching them. However, under the company's training, her sense of variety increased day by day. During the game, she completely threw away the burden of being an idol and fought fiercely with the other guests. One of the games was to wear a special sumo suit and play sumo in a place similar to an arena. Yun Shirshir was wearing a bloated fighting suit. She and Hua Jin were on the same team as Gu Xingze and another female host. She discussed it with Hua Jin and decided to work together to get rid of Gu Xingze. Hence, Hua Jin was in charge of charging forward. With a roar, he charged towards Gu Xingze, who was also wearing a sumo suit, like cannon fodder. Wow! Hua Jin roared angrily, but unexpectedly, Gu Xingze nimbly dodged and he missed. Gu Xingze leaped up and kicked Hua Jin's butt. Hua Jin was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Yun Shirshir was completely dumbfounded. This Hua Jin was too weak. Hua Jin immediately stood up and charged towards Gu Xingze again. Yun Shirshir did not hesitate and also charged towards Gu Xingze. The 3 of them were entangled together, pushing and shoving each other. Chapter 2854. The female host, who was standing at the side, could not bear to watch this any longer. She stepped forward to help the superstar, but who knew if the superstar had done it on purpose or by accident? He lifted his leg and accidentally kicked her off the stage. Eliminated. Ha 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 ha. Everyone in the audience was rolling over in laughter. This time, it was a 2v1. Yun Shirshir grinned wickedly as she and Hua Jin besieged him together. Little did they expect that, even after losing a teammate,
the superstar would still be so valiant. In just 2 minutes, he had taken down both of them. The audience was in an uproar. The viewership ratings for the gaming segment kept rising. Very soon they took the top spot. Next up was the talent segment. The production team sent out Yoon Shurshur to showcase her singing skills. Yoon Shurshur sang the theme song for the drama, Lunatic. This song was composed by Gu Xingze and written by Yoon Shurshur. As the theme song for the drama's trailer, Ace Intelligence Agency had spent a lot of effort to get this song to premiere. Yoon Shurshur was a little nervous at the beginning. After all, she didn't think her singing was very good. But as the atmosphere warmed up, she gradually relaxed. All the guests were sitting on the sofa. Yoon Shurshur stood in the middle of the stage, holding the microphone and singing with deep emotion. The only crazy thing I've ever done is to love you until the end of the world, only until now your story there's no place for me become a hostage of my own making lose all reason at the end of the road but your paranoia your memories, never have my name never leave a mark in your heart. Awake when I dream love you, I'm a lunatic missing you, I miss you hate you, I'm a lunatic but my heart hurts you don't understand I'm afraid it's too late love you one more time how lucky am Ito meet you in my lifetime. The melody was beautiful and lyrical, but it was full of despair. Gu Xingze looked at her silently from beginning to end. Even when the song ended, he was still in a daze for a long time. He seemed to be deep in thought, but no one knew what he was thinking. Next it was an interview. The main cast and crew sat on the sofa as the host kept asking questions about the filming. Halfway through the conversation, the host suddenly turned to Gu Xingze and asked curiously, "Xingze, you haven't been acting in TV dramas these years. Extreme Youth is probably your first comeback project after 2 years of absence from the TV industry, right?" Gu Xingze nodded lightly. The host continued asking, "Why did you take on this drama?" Another host chimed in, "I heard that Gu Xingze is also a car racer, and his driving skills are outstanding." He casually said, "Actually, this is probably my last TV series." Oh. The host's eyes widened in surprise. The others is. "Are you planning to focus on your film career after this movie?" Gu Xingze denied. "No." "Then, why did you say that?" Gu Xingze looked up slightly and faced the camera. His lips curled into a faint smile. "Because I'm planning to officially retire from the entertainment industry." The air suddenly became quiet. Yoon Shurshur looked at him suddenly. There was an uproar. The audience below the stage exclaimed in surprise. Of course, the fans didn't believe it. Liar. Chairman Gu is being naughty again. Chapter 2855. Naturally, the host did not believe him and asked suspiciously, "Xingze, are you kidding me? You can't do this. You have to know that there are many of your loyal fans sitting below the stage. If you quit the entertainment industry, your fans will be scared to tears." "It's true," Gu Xingze said calmly. "In the 10 years since my debut, I have indeed won a lot of glory, but I think it's time to put an end to my 10 years. The entertainment industry is shameless and is always injecting new blood. There are many outstanding newcomers with good acting skills, but they don't have the opportunity to appear in front of the camera. I think I should give up this opportunity and give the younger generation more opportunities to perform." "No!" The fans below the stage screamed uncontrollably. The scene was out of control. Many fans held up billboards and shouted Gu Xingze's name in support. The director also revealed his face from behind the camera and looked at the stage with some confusion. He was very surprised and hesitated for a moment. Now that the scene was out of control, he wondered if he should rush in with the advertisement and cut this part out. Although it was a live broadcast, there was a 10-minute time difference between what was shown on TV and what was shown on TV. This was to prevent any accidents from happening and to edit it in time. However, even the director was stunned. This sudden announcement was not part of the script. Everyone was flustered and did not know how to react. Fortunately, the host reacted quickly and immediately returned to his senses and continued the interview. "Why did you decide to quit the entertainment industry?" "Actually, all your fans have seen the glory you have achieved since your debut. Now that you are so popular, isn't it irrational to choose to quit the entertainment industry? In the beginning, entering the entertainment industry was just a change in life for me. I did not treat it as my entire life. However, with the rise of popularity, this job gradually became a responsibility." Gu Xingze paused and smiled slightly. He continued, "However, Being in a high workload state all the time makes one feel tired. I don't get a good rest every day, so my fans want to see more of me in front of the camera. My works, my new songs, and even my advertisements. A lot of work far exceeds my workload. Being in this state for a long time is really a very negative way of life. Don't quit the entertainment industry. Many fans were so emotional that they cried. Hua Jin was also stunned. Yun Shishir felt even more conflicted and did not know how to react for a moment. She had never imagined that this program would be his farewell ceremony from the entertainment industry. Was he really going to quit the entertainment industry? Gu Xingze glanced at the audience and suddenly stood up. He walked to the front of the stage and smiled faintly at a fan who was covering her face in pain. Don't cry, okay? Xingze, we love you. The fans were sobbing and begging him to stay. Gu Xingze laughed. Don't be sad, okay? I'm just quitting the entertainment industry, but that doesn't mean you won't see me in the future. I'm just too tired. Xingze. The fans cried bitterly. Don't be so tired. You don't have to accept so many drafts. We are all willing to wait for you. But, without any works, artists will be outdated. Gu Xingze said helplessly. Being outdated is more painful than retiring. Chapter 2856. You'll never be out of date. You'll always be our star. You'll always be our favorite idol. Xingze, don't make such a joke. We'll go crazy. Xingze, if you leave the industry, my heart will die. The scene became extremely sad. Even Gu Xingze, who never accepted emotional content, was teared up by the fans' passionate pleas and sorrowful tears. He turned around and slowly returned to his seat. When he turned around again, his handsome face was reflected in front of the camera. His eyes were so red that it made one's heart ache. I made this decision after much consideration. Gu Xingze sucked in a deep breath of cold air and finally said slowly, I've already booked a flight to America. I'll go back to university to pursue my postgraduate studies. With that, he put down the microphone, stood up abruptly, and left the studio resolutely. The scene was completely out of control. The fans' cries drowned out all the noise. All the main creatives of the production team looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Ever since the show was broadcast, it was the first time that it had to stop halfway because of such a sudden incident. On Weibo, netizens uploaded the edited footage of Gu Xingze's official announcement of his retirement from the entertainment industry. It quickly caused a lot of heated discussion. Gu Xingze announces his retirement from the entertainment industry. Gu Xingze's era is over. Gu Xingze's retirement from the entertainment industry has a hidden reason? Gu Xingze is unwell and announced his retirement from the entertainment industry to recuperate in America. On the internet, the fans were in an uproar because of this matter. Gu Xingze's latest Weibo post was quickly pushed to the top of the trending list. Many fans left comments to persuade their idol to stay. Many of them had become Gu Xingze's fans since they were in school. Until now, some of them had become moms, and some of them had matured and grown up. Gu Xingze had debuted for 10 years, and their fans had been around for 10 years. From the popular newbie when he first debuted to the Triphibian Heavenly King now, the name Gu Xingze was the youth of many people. One could imagine how much of a shock this news was to Gu Xingze's die-hard fans. It was too sudden. He was not mentally prepared at all. This was like bad news. How painful was that? Many fans who chased after celebrities could empathize with them. When the entire cast and crew returned home, Yun Shishir noticed that Gu Xingze had quietly left the cast and crew's group chat. She immediately called Qin Zhou. Qin Zhou picked up the phone and talked about this matter. Qin Zhou helplessly said that he also just found out about it. Without any warning, Gu Xingze announced his withdrawal and did not mention it to anyone. Even a close friend like Qin Zhou had never mentioned it to him. Why are you suddenly saying that you want to quit the entertainment industry? Yun Shishir was puzzled. What's going on? After I found out about this, I kept calling him, but I couldn't get through. Could something have happened? Yun Shishir could not help but worry. Chapter 2857. I understand. Yun Shishir hung up the phone. Qin Zhou told her not to care about this matter. But how could she not care and not think about it? Yun Shishir could not help but feel upset and did not rest well the entire night. In the WeChat group, After a heated discussion, the director said, Xingza's announcement of his withdrawal from the entertainment industry is his personal decision. We have no right to interfere with how he decides his own life. Don't talk too much about it. Soon, the group was dead silent. On Weibo, the heated discussion about Gu Xingza's incident never stopped. Many fans acted as if it was the end of the world and wantonly expressed their emotions on Weibo. Many people posted their purchases of Gu Xingza's records, movies, albums, and all kinds of merchandise. Some of the posters had already turned yellow and were stained with the traces of time. Some of the records had Gu Xingza's signature written on them. Fans cried and complained that the name Gu Xingza was all her youth. She had thought that she could stay by this idol's side until the end of time. Her sentiments resonated with countless fans. Those who had never pursued an idol probably did not know how it felt. It was a feeling more painful than being heartbroken. At this time, many keyboard warriors also appeared and wantonly accused Gu Xingza's fans of being brainless fans. Instead of paying attention to the matter of number 8 in the Sky Palace, they actually paid attention to an entertainer. Entertainers are really ruining the country. Instead of paying attention to national affairs, they actually pay attention to a celebrity. I'm so disappointed in young people these days. I heard that Gu Xingza's annual income is 9 figures. He's just an entertainer. How can he earn so much money? Those scientists who work hard on the front lines can't even earn 1% of this in their lifetime, right? This country is going to be finished soon, fans retorted. We can't make decisions on national affairs. But after liking Xingza for so many years, we've received a lot of positive energy from him. He works hard and is passionate about public welfare. He's an outstanding young idol. There are too many fascinating things about him. This is irreplaceable. Loving Xingza has become a way of life for countless of us fans. The scolding war continued to escalate. After Gu Xingza announced his retirement from the entertainment industry, it triggered a series of wars. Yun Shishir didn't want to pay attention to these disturbances. She put the phone on the pillow, but her mind was preoccupied. The next morning, Yun Shishir was woken up by a phone call from Xiao Shui. Shishir! It was a deafening roar. Xiao Shui cried in despair. Do you know? Xingza announced his withdrawal from the entertainment industry. Woo 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 woo. What should I do? What should I do? I'm heartbroken. Just as Qin Zhou had predicted, Gu Xingza held a grand press conference at 9 o'clock in the morning in the conference room of the 5-star hotel. In front of the camera, Gu Xingza stood on the rostrum with a calm expression. The flashlights flashed, illuminating his face with white light. I officially announce that from today onwards, I, Gu Xingza, will be leaving the entertainment industry. After he finished speaking, he bowed deeply. His calm expression was hidden in the shadows. The press conference was broadcasted live on different video websites. The television stations took turns to broadcast it and reported it seriously. Gu Xingza's calm and handsome face was projected on the big screen in the mall. Chapter 2858. Many fans gathered under the big screen. When they heard this news, they covered their mouths and choked. This was probably the most morale day in the entertainment industry. 2 days after the press conference, this matter was still fermenting. Because of Gu Xingza's matter, Extreme Youth suddenly became the center of attention. When the entire production team was doing promotions, only Gu Xingza was absent. In the face of the media's questions, all the topics revolved around Gu Xingza's name. The entire production team was very embarrassed. All the media was targeting a lead actor who was no longer participating in any promotions. This was the most frustrating thing. There were some questions that they also wanted to answer, but what exactly were the answers? Why did Gu Xingza quit the entertainment industry? Even they did not have an answer. The director kept repeating, "Please don't ask questions that have nothing to do with the production." I'm sorry, I don't know. However, the media seemed to want to get to the bottom of it. Backstage, the director almost flew into a rage. Gu Xingza. Gu Xingza. Why are they all asking questions about him? It's not like we can interfere with a decision like quitting the entertainment industry. We have no way of knowing the reason for quitting. These media outlets really have no standards at all. When Yun Shishir heard this, her heart sank. Gu Xingza's fans are too much. Isn't it just quitting the entertainment industry? It's like they're crying at a funeral. Look at those brainless fans at the venue. It's as if I'm the one who forced Gu Xingze to quit. It's so annoying. When Hua Jin heard the director's words, he felt a little uncomfortable. Crying at a funeral. Director, do you have to say such harsh words? Am I not telling the truth? The director was really angry. Why are you sticking up for him? I think it's unreasonable and too much for you to say that about Senior Xingze's fans. Hua Jin said, perhaps Xingze has long had the idea of quitting the entertainment industry because of his health. When we were filming the show that day, I could tell that he didn't look too good. However, even if he wanted to quit the industry, it would have been after filming all the scenes and when the production team was wrapping up. His withdrawal from the industry had indirectly helped the production team gain popularity. But even if he has decided to quit the entertainment industry, you shouldn't say that about his fans out of basic respect. Who do you think you are? The director cursed. Hua Jin, are you trying to challenge me? Who do you think you are? You're just a gigolo who was raised as a mistress and relied on the unspoken rules to get to where you are. I say, those brainless fans, why are you blindly interfering? Get lost. You! Hua Jin was furious and glared at him. He had dug up all the old grudges and even used such malicious words against him. He was so excited that he wanted to rush forward. Yun Shishir immediately stopped him. Hua Jin, don't be rash. Under her persuasion, Hua Jin finally managed to hold himself back. However, she turned around and suddenly walked over to the director. She stopped in front of him. Shishir, what are you doing? Before he could finish his sentence, Yun Shishir raised her hand and slapped him across the face. Everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. There were many big shots who dared to challenge the director. However, Yun Shishir was the first person to slap the director in front of everyone. She was crazy. What are you doing? The director covered his face and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Chapter 2859. If you don't respect others, don't expect others to respect you. Then, Yun Shishir said calmly, Director, I think Hua Jin is right. You don't have to take out your anger on Xingze's fans for the media's mistakes, and you don't have to use those despicable words to insult Hua Jin. You! The director gritted his teeth and glared at her. But he only dared to glare at her. Who was Yun Shishir? Mu Yaja's wife. Just the name Mu Yaja alone was something he could not afford to offend even if there were 10 of him. Therefore, he could only swallow his anger after being slapped by her. Yun Shishir returned to Hua Jin's side and held his hand. Let's go. Because of her slap, Hua Jin's pent-up anger dissipated a lot. After leaving the television station building, Hua Jin said a little gloomily, Actually, I feel quite disappointed when Gu Xingze left the entertainment industry. Disappointed? Yes, he has always been my goal. I have always regarded him as my beacon. I hope that one day, I can replace him and become a popular idol. However, I feel quite disappointed when he leaves the entertainment industry. Yun Shishir's lips twitched. You can't surpass him. Oh, everyone can't be replaced. Moreover, he is the idol of the Triphibian Heavenly King. Just by singing, he can crush you to death. You can't sing well, so how can you compare to him? He has won an international music award. What about you? You have to rely on post-production tuning to sing the theme song. Hua Jin pouted. Stop talking. His heart ached. The video of Gu Xingze's press conference was broadcasted through various channels and presented to the public. He was the symbol of an era. His 10 years had been incomparably glorious. Fans had fantasized about accompanying him through his second decade and third decade. However, they suddenly received the news of his departure. All the fans were devastated by this shocking news. Their overly fanatical behavior caused the other netizens to be dissatisfied. They began to denounce these die-hard fans on a large scale. The internet was in a mess. Yun Shishir didn't know how she felt about this matter. However, the feeling of loss stayed with him for a few days. After bidding farewell to Hua Jin, she slowly walked along the street aimlessly. However, little did she know that a black car was slowly following behind her. She was so immersed in her own thoughts that she didn't realize that there was a car following closely behind her. His phone suddenly rang. Yun Shishir picked up her phone and saw Gu Xingze's name on the screen. Xingze? What's wrong with him? Disregarding her doubts, she quickly picked up the call and placed the phone to her ear. Gu Xingza's calm and gentle voice could be heard from the other end. Sure, it's me. Yun Sure was stunned. She stopped in her tracks and froze on the spot. It had been a long time since he had called her by her name. Perhaps it was because calling her Sure was too intimate and ambiguous. Hence, he had always called her by her full name. Now, this sudden gentle call had really caught her off guard. Xingza. Are you on the street? Gu Xingza heard some noises and car horns on the other end of the line and guessed that she was on the streets. Yeah. Yun Sure said, I saw the live broadcast of your press conference. Chapter 2860. I saw the live broadcast of your press conference. Ha! You really have the heart to do that. Yun Sure looked around. Coincidentally, there was a big screen in the shopping mall not far from her. On the screen, Gu Xingza's announcement of his retirement from the entertainment industry was still being played. Below the screen, there was a circle of fans. Even though there was a distance between them, Yun Sure knew that the eyes of these fans must be filled with tears. Your fans really can't bear for you to quit. Yun Sure sighed. You might be a little too heartless. Why did you quit the entertainment industry? There's no reason. I'm just tired of living in front of the camera. Regarding this topic, Gu Xingza did not delve too much into it. He changed the topic. Sure. Can we meet? As if he was afraid that she would reject him, he smiled and said, This is probably the last time we'll see each other. What do you mean? He said, My flight is at 1 in the morning. After tonight, I will return to America and never come back. Although she was mentally prepared, when she heard Gu Xingza say that he would never come back, she felt a little suffocated. Sure. Gu Xingza took a deep breath. I want to see you. Even if we don't say anything, I want to see you for the last time. Yun Sure also took a deep breath. She looked up at the starry sky and asked, Where are you? I'm at the office. I just signed a bunch of agreements. Gu Xingza said again, Where are you? Tell me, I'll go and find you. I'm in the city center now. But there are too many people here. It's not convenient for you, right? With Gu Xingza's national recognition, even if he was fully armed, he would be recognized in a matter of minutes if he walked on the streets. Yun Sure tried to get his opinion. Do you know the park at Huxin Island? Yes. Are you driving? Yes, I'll drive. I'll wait for you at the car park at Huxin Island. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Yun Sure immediately walked to the side of the street and flagged down a car. A taxi stopped beside her and she immediately got in. The driver glanced at her and stepped on the accelerator. Then, he realized what was going on and suddenly slammed on the brakes. What's wrong? Yun Sure turned pale with fright. She was startled by the sudden braking. You are that. The driver thought hard for a while. The TV drama that my wife has been following recently is called Lethal Beauty. You're the second female lead in it, right? It's that bad woman. My wife hated you at first. But after watching some of your variety shows, I fell in love with you again. Looking at her up close, she really is a beautiful lady. Yun Sure smiled awkwardly. I didn't expect my luck to be so good today. I picked up a superstar. Superstar? Can I have your autograph? Okay, but you have to drive me to my destination first. Oh, okay. The driver was so excited that he didn't even turn on the meter and just slammed on the accelerator. Along the way, the traffic lights were congested. The driver suddenly glanced at the rear mirror and made a tisk sound. The Lexus has been following us all the way. Maybe it's a coincidence. Yun Sure said casually. The driver said half-jokingly, Could it be the paparazzi? Why are there so many paparazzi following us every day? Yun Sure didn't think much of it. Chapter 2861. However, when time came to a standstill, countless thoughts rushed into her mind. Yun Sure could not help but recall everything that had happened between her and Gu Xingza. Scenes flashed before her eyes like a merry-go-round. Unknowingly, her eyes turned red. He said that he was going to America and would not be coming back. In other words, tonight would be the last time they met. She actually felt a little reluctant to part with him. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, her phone rang again. She picked up her phone, thinking that it was a call from Gu Xingza. Unexpectedly, it was a video call from Gong Jia.
Yun Shishir was stunned. Looking at the time, it was already late. Why would he call at this hour? On second thought, due to the time difference, it was probably still daytime over at Xiao Jie's place. Perhaps something had happened. She picked up the video call. On the other end, Gong Jie's handsome face was reflected on the screen. However, his expression was very serious and even a little nervous. Xiao Jie, what's wrong? Why do you look so nervous? Gong Jie did not bother with pleasantries and went straight to the point. Sis, uncle can speak now. What? Yun Shishir turned pale with fright and stood up abruptly. You're saying that Dad can speak now? Yes. Gong Jie was also greatly encouraged, but he still frowned. I told him that it wasn't easy for him to recover the function of his vocal cords. He must pay attention to his recuperation, but he insisted on talking to you. No. Yun Shishir was resolute. He can't speak immediately after recovering the function of his vocal cords. Let him recover completely first before we talk about it. I advised him that too, but he didn't listen at all. Gong Jie said solemnly, Sis, you should talk to him. Perhaps your words will be more persuasive. All right, let me see him. Yun Shishir also missed him. Gong Jie froze the video call. Then, he got someone to carry Yun Yeching into a wheelchair and pushed it over. As soon as Yun Yeching's figure was reflected on the screen, Gong Jie gently said a few words to him. Yun Yeching immediately understood and looked at the phone. Knowing that the other side of the phone was his beloved daughter, he opened his mouth to speak in an unbelievably hoarse voice. Shishir, Daddy has caused you to suffer. Dad? Yun Shishir furrowed her brows as tears welled up in her eyes. She quickly said, Dad, don't talk so much. It wasn't easy for you to recover the function. Be careful of your sister. Yun Yeching ignored her advice and squeezed out these words with much difficulty while holding on to the wheelchair. Yun Shishir was completely stunned. Sister? Yun. She is not dead. His voice was as rough and broken as gravel, but even though he was speaking with great difficulty, she still understood what he was trying to convey. Yun Na, she's not dead? Dad, how did you know? Because the person who attacked me that night was her. Yun Yeching seemed to have prepared a script as he said agitatedly. It was her who destroyed me with sulfuric acid. She will definitely look for you. You must be careful. Yun Shishir's face instantly turned ghastly pale as her lips trembled. How is that possible? How could she do such a cruel thing to you? Chapter 2862. Just as she finished speaking, she suddenly felt a car slowly approaching from behind. The ground beneath her feet was instantly illuminated by the high-beam headlights, turning it as bright as a white carpet. The low rumble of the car's engine rose and fell continuously. Yun Shishir's heart skipped a beat. She turned around stiffly and saw a black Lexus parked quietly not far away. The car's high-beam headlights were extremely dazzling. The light suddenly changed, and in an instant, her eyes were as bright as the aurora. Yun Shishir could not open her eyes because of the blinding light. She could not help but raise her hand to shield her eyes. She subconsciously staggered backward, only to see the car release its brakes and step on the accelerator, speeding toward her. Yun Shishir hurriedly retreated and wanted to avoid it. Suddenly, a man's steady voice came from behind. Shishir, be careful. Immediately after, a figure pounced on her. It was Gu Xingze. When he pounced on her, he did not forget to use his arms to protect her. Hence, even when the two of them fell to the ground, she fell into his arms and did not collide directly with the ground because of his protection. Her phone, however, did not escape being crushed by the car's wheels and was directly crushed. The car brushed past the two of them and stopped very quickly. Immediately after, a woman got out of the car. Yun Shishir turned around abruptly and saw that the woman was wearing a simple outfit that was as black as ink. However, under her short hair, her face was extremely ugly and covered with hideous scars. Even so, Yun Shishir could still recognize her at a glance. Based on her facial features, this woman was Yun Na. It turned out that she was in the Lexus that had been following her all this while. Yun Shishir shuddered at the thought of this. She then thought of Yun Yeching's words earlier. Yun Na is not dead. She destroyed me with sulfuric acid.
Yun Shusher reacted to everything at once. She raised her head abruptly and glared fiercely at her, crying with every word. Yun Na, it's you. You're the one who harmed Dad. Shut up. Yun Na said coldly. He's not my dad. I'm not Yun Na too. Yun Shusher, tonight is the day you die. Yun Na didn't make any long-winded speech. Her goal was very simple. Kill her and Yun Shusher. Then, more than half of her hatred would be satisfied. She originally wanted to find that child to avenge her humiliation. After all, that child called Yu was the real culprit who had harmed her. But on second thought, compared to killing a person, making that person lose the person they loved the most was the cruelest punishment. If Yu lost his mother, wouldn't that be hell on earth? With this thought in mind, Yun Na decided to get rid of Yun Shusher. As for Gu Xingze, since he had interfered, then he would be dealt with as well. Yun Na suddenly took out a gun and loaded it skillfully. She raised her hand and aimed the black muzzle at her. There was no need to be sloppy when it came to killing people, and there was no need for so much nonsense. She would not give Yun Shusher any chance to escape. She would not give this man a chance to breathe either. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. Kill them all. Yun Na sneered. The cold muzzle was aimed at her glabella. The moment she pulled the trigger, Gu Xingze reacted faster than her. He pushed Yun Shusher away abruptly and rolled on the ground himself. The bullets hit the ground, sending sparks flying and smoke curling up. Chapter 2863. Yun Na wanted to aim at him again, but Gu Xingze suddenly bounced up from the ground and rushed toward her without hesitation. With a beautiful roundhouse kick, he sent the pistol in her hand flying far away. Ah! Yun Na groaned in pain. She immediately hugged her wrist, her face contorted in pain. It hurts. Gu Xingze's roundhouse kick had broken her wrist. She gripped her wrist tightly. When she looked up again, her eyes were already bloodshot. Every single one of you is protecting her. Are you all her dogs? Is there a need to be so loyal? Even if you have to die for her, are you not afraid? Yun Shusher gritted her teeth. From the corner of her eye, she saw another person getting out of the car. She immediately turned her head and saw a man in black suddenly crouching down and walking quickly toward Gu Xingze. Yun Na wasn't the only one here. Yun Na wasn't the only one in the car. There were others. Oh no! Yun Shusher immediately blurted out, Xingze, be careful. Gu Xingze heard her shout and was a little distracted. When he turned around, Yun Na immediately pulled out a sharp dagger from her waist. She pulled it out of the scabbard, held the handle tightly, and stabbed him viciously in the back. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Ugh! Gu Xingze was caught off guard and was stabbed by the dagger. He immediately arched his body. From the corner of his eye, he saw another man in black immediately walk over. He reached out and quietly grabbed his throat, dragged him to the side, and punched him hard in the chest. Cough! Gu Xingze was numb from the pain from this punch. He frowned and the veins on his forehead popped out. The man quickly restrained him, grabbed him by the throat, and pinned him high against the wall. Yun Na rushed over without thinking. Holding the dagger, she ruthlessly stabbed him in the abdomen again. Ah! No, no! Yun Shusher was so frightened by this cruel scene that she was speechless. Her mind went blank, but she forced herself to regain her senses. From the corner of her eye, she suddenly saw the pistol that had been kicked aside by Gu Xingze. She hurriedly crawled over and held the pistol tightly with trembling hands. She had never held a pistol before, so she didn't know how to use the heavy metal object in her hand. What to do? What to do? Yun Shusher was so anxious that her face turned pale, and her forehead was covered with cold sweat. At that moment, Yun Na stabbed him again. When she suddenly pulled out the dagger, it was dripping with blood. Stop! Yun Shusher screamed and rushed over. She clumsily aimed the gun at the man's feet and pulled the trigger. Because Yun Na had already loaded the gun, the bullet flew out quickly. In the blink of an eye, the bullet hit the man's leg. The man staggered and knelt on one knee. Bang! Bang! She fired 2 more shots at his back. Yun Na saw that she had a gun in her hand and was about to rush toward her. Yun Shusher, I'll kill you. Go to hell for me. Seeing her rush over, Yun Shusher trembled and held the gun tightly. She broke down and said, You're the one who should go to hell. Bang! Bang! The bullet shot through Yun Na's other intact wrist and penetrated her flesh. The other bullet lost its center of gravity and made a hole in the wall. Yun Na's dagger fell to the ground. Yun Shirshir. You! She couldn't believe it. She didn't expect that Yun Shirshir could hit the target on her first try. Chapter 2864. She had practiced for a long time to learn how to use a pistol. Yun Na was in so much pain that she could no longer move her hands. Like a walking corpse, she rushed toward her and slammed her to the ground. Yun Shirshir wanted to pull the trigger again, but she realized that there were no more bullets. This pistol only had 6 bullets. She was shocked and panicked. Yun Na was on top of her. Because she was angry from embarrassment, she opened her mouth and bit down hard on her shoulder like a mad dog. Ah! Yun Shirshir groaned in pain and broke out in a cold sweat. She suddenly reached out and strangled Yun Na's neck. She was on the verge of losing her mind. She did not care about those so-called scruples and used her fingers to crush Yun Na's eyeballs. Because of the enormous pain, Yun Na let out a shrill cry hysterically, and she actually rolled over to the side. She was too anxious. She was too anxious to get rid of Yun Shirshir. Instead, she was flustered because of this. Yun Shirshir immediately got up from the ground and pounced on her again. She used her hands to strangle her ruthlessly. Angry and desperate, she shouted at the top of her lungs, "Yun Na! Why are you so cruel?" Yun Na was choked until she could not breathe. Her entire head was red because of the lack of oxygen in her brain. Her eyes bulged and her veins popped out. Yun Shirshir gritted her teeth and said, "I hate you. I hate you. You're the one who destroyed this family. You deserve to die. The one who deserves to die is not me. It's you. You're the one who caused Dad to be like that. He's your biological father. How can you treat him so cruelly?" "He's not." Yun Na screamed in despair. "He's not my father. He's not. Yun Shirshir, you took away everything that belonged to me. Even if I go to hell one day, I want you to be buried with me." When Yun Shirshir thought of Yun Yeching's miserable state, she hated this detestable and evil woman even more. She tightened her grip on Yun Na's throat and exerted more force. She wanted to kill her. Even if she was sentenced to break the law, she would not hesitate. This woman is crazy. If he didn't kill her, she would kill him and Xingzhe. She absolutely couldn't tolerate her hurting Xingzhe again. Yun Shirshir and Yun Na were in a fierce confrontation. Behind them, the man in black finally got up from the ground. He had been shot in the knee, and one of his legs had lost its support. However, when he saw that Yun Na was at a disadvantage, he immediately turned around and returned to the car. He opened the trunk and took out a silver handgun. The man turned around. Under the moonlight, the gun glinted coldly and attracted Gu Xingze's attention. It was a gun. He followed the man's gaze and realized that he was closing in on Yun Shirshir. He gradually raised his right hand, swiftly loaded the gun, and put his index finger on the trigger. No. Without a second thought, Gu Xingze ignored the blood flowing out of his abdomen and back. Just as the man raised his gun and pulled the trigger, Gu Xingze pounced on him. Ugh! The man was caught off guard and was pushed to the ground by Gu Xingze. However, the trigger had already been pulled, but the bullet's trajectory suddenly deviated. Originally, if the shot had not deviated, the bullet should have pierced through the back of Yun Shirshir's head. However, because of Gu Xingze's interference, the bullet hit the car window beside Yun Shirshir. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The car alarm sounded. Chapter 2865. The glass shattered. The flying glass cut her cheeks and exposed her skin. Finally, the glass shards pierced Yun Shirshir's eyes. The eyes were the weakest part of a human being. When the glass shards pierced her eyes, the piercing pain made her cry out in pain. Because of the sharp object piercing her eyes, Yun Shirshir felt a piercing pain in her eyes. Her whole body fell backward. Her eyes hurt. After the whole world spun around, her head hit the concrete floor heavily. Her eyes were shaking from the pain. Then, she seemed to feel the glass from the car window falling on her body. Shirshir. She seemed to hear Gu Xingze calling her name. But she couldn't hear what he was shouting. The pain seemed to have taken over all her consciousness. So painful, her eyes hurt. Yun Shirshir panicked. She touched her eyelids with trembling hands. Her fingertips touched a patch of warm blood that stained her eyelashes. It flowed down her cheeks and stained her clothes. She endured the searing pain and opened her eyes a little. Her vision was blurred by blood, as if covered by a layer of red fog. It was so hazy that she couldn't see anything. She could only vaguely distinguish the glaring light. I can't see anything. Yun Shusher choked with sobs. Gu Xingze frowned and gritted his teeth. He grabbed the dagger from the ground with difficulty. The man behind him wanted to get up and make a final struggle. However, Gu Xingze didn't give him the chance to do so. The dagger pierced into his chest. That was where his heart was. Gu Xingze knew very well that this dagger had pierced into his chest. He didn't want to get up. The man's eyes widened in disbelief as he was stabbed in the chest. His face instantly became distorted as he looked at the man covered in blood in disbelief. He had been stabbed so many times, but he still had so much strength to actually stab the dagger so deeply. The man immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. This slash was almost destructive. His entire body collapsed on the 3rd floor. His eyes were wide open in anger and he no longer struggled. Gu Xingze stood up and staggered over to Yun Shusher's side to help her up. However, when he exerted a little force, it affected the location of the wound, and blood gushed out again. Yun Shusher shrieked in fright when she felt someone touching her. Gu Xingze immediately coaxed her gently. Shusher, don't be afraid. It's me, Xingze. He held back the sweet taste in his throat and glanced at Yun Na, who was unconscious on the ground. He said to her, let's go to the hospital. Before he could finish his words, his legs went soft and he almost fell to his knees. When Yun Shusher heard his voice, she endured the pain and groped around aimlessly. Finally, she found his hand. She immediately grasped his hand tightly. Xingze, how are you? Are you seriously injured? Did you lose a lot of blood? No. Gu Xingze endured the pain and gritted his teeth. He pretended to smile calmly and said, I'm fine. Yun Shusher didn't believe him. She rubbed his body, but he held her hand instead. Your eyes are injured. Let's go to the hospital, okay? Okay. Yun Shusher touched her face in pain. When she touched the sticky blood, she became even more flustered. She couldn't see anything. Chapter 2866. Seeing that she was flustered, Gu Xingze hugged her gently to calm her down. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Everything will be fine, he said calmly. Everything will be fine, okay? Don't be afraid. The two of them stood up while leaning against each other. Yun Shusher couldn't see and had lost her sense of direction. She could only use all her strength to put Gu Xingze's arm on her shoulders and try her best to support all his weight. Gu Xingze hugged her shoulders. He knew deep down that this idiot must have wanted to use his body to support her. However, she was also severely injured. He couldn't bear to let her bear all his weight. He really couldn't bear to let her bear all his weight. Hence, he shifted his weight to the other side. He hugged her with one hand and covered his bleeding wound with the other. He slowly walked towards the intersection. Yun Shusher couldn't see. Because she couldn't see how pale his face was at this moment. His face was pale and covered in cold sweat. Especially his originally rosy lips. They had lost all color due to excessive blood loss. And because she couldn't see at all how gentle Gu Xingze's gaze was on her at this moment. It was a gentleness that was engraved in his bones. If he could, he wanted to look at her as much as possible. He wanted to imprint her features deeply into his bones and blood. If he could, he wanted time to stop right here and now. He wanted to look at her quietly until he got tired of looking at her. If he could, he wanted to go back to the day when they first met. He would definitely hug her tightly in his arms. When that man appeared, he would take over her entire heart. Gu Xingze's lips suddenly trembled. Looking at Yun Shusher's side profile as she endured the pain, he couldn't bear to let her go just like that. For a moment, his eyes were filled with tears and they were red. Shusher. Before I came, I thought of countless parting words. Gu Xingze tried his best to widen his eyes and force back his tears. His Adam's apple bobbed, and the corners of his lips curled up. He smiled and said, I want to wish you happiness. I wish you happiness forever. But I selfishly think that I might not be able to be generous to wish you happiness. Yun Shusher's expression suddenly froze.
How I wish that you couldn't live without me. Xingza. I like you. Gu Xingza endured the pain and his voice was as soft as the wind. I really like you. Cough. He tried his best to force a smile. I love it so much. This was the first time in his life that he loved someone so deeply. He couldn't accept this. He couldn't accept this. For the first time in his life, he wanted to obtain someone, but after exhausting everything, he still couldn't obtain her. However, no matter how unwilling he was, I still want you to be happy. Gu Xingza muttered. Sure, do you know? I want to be generous and wish you happiness, but I also selfishly hope that you'll never be happy for me. But if you're lonely, I can't bear it. Yun Shishir suddenly felt the weight on one of her shoulders collapse. Her shoulder was suddenly empty, and she heard a heavy sound. It was the sound of someone falling to the ground. Xingza! Yun Shishir was so scared that she cried, Xingza, where are you? Chapter 2867. Xingza, where are you? She immediately squatted down and desperately searched until she found an arm. She crawled over along the arm and hugged Gu Xingza in her arms with heartache. Tears kept flowing from her eyes and dripped onto his body along with blood. Xingza, don't scare me. Don't scare me. She was so shocked that she was flustered. It was as if the whole world had collapsed. She shouldn't have accepted his appointment. She should have rejected him cruelly. That way, even if he was disappointed, he could have safely boarded the plane to America and not ended up like this. She was wrong. Oh God. She knew she was wrong. She really knew she was wrong. Could she rewind time? Could she rewind time? She didn't want anything to happen to him. Sure. Gu Xingza's breathing suddenly quickened. He opened his eyes and looked up at her. Seeing her crying, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Don't cry. Xingza, don't scare me. It's okay. Gu Xingza smiled gently and coaxed her softly. I don't care about life and death anymore. He had depression, so he didn't care about death. From the beginning to the end, he had locked himself in his own world. The only light he saw was her, but he didn't hold on to it firmly. In this world, the only thing he couldn't care less about was her tears. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Yun Shishir cried bitterly. Let's exchange, okay? I'll exchange my life for yours. Please, don't die. You can't die. Don't leave me so cruelly. Will you forget me? Gu Xingza asked with difficulty. When Yun Shishir heard this, tears welled up in her eyes. He continued to ask stubbornly, if I die, will you remember me for a second? Yun Shishir was very sad and deliberately provoked him. If you die, I'll definitely forget you. The more I forget, the better. So, when Gu Xingza heard this, he laughed softly and interrupted her. Yes, that would be best. Yun Shishir was stunned. When Gu Xingza heard that she was going to forget about him, there was a sense of loss and comfort in his eyes. He was disappointed because she said that she wanted to forget about him. Comforting, like this. What was left for her was not those painful memories. I also don't want to leave you with sad memories. Gu Xingza's eyelids became heavier and heavier. His face lost all its luster and became extremely gloomy, but he still tried to smile. Forget me. It would be best. His eyelashes gradually drooped. His fair hand suddenly slipped from her palm and hung limply to the side. The air suddenly became deathly still. In his ears, it was as if the line of death had been drawn. She could no longer hear any sound, and she could no longer feel any warmth or undulations from his body. She could only feel that his body was gradually losing its warmth, and it was becoming increasingly cold. Xingza? She forced a smile and gently touched his cold face, trying her best to pull the corner of his lips. Xingza, can you talk to me? I want to talk to you. I'm scared. I'm really scared. Liar. Yun Shishir furrowed her eyebrows. Didn't you say that with you around, I don't need to be afraid? But, why did you leave me behind? Gu Xingza did not react at all, let alone make a sound. Chapter 2868. Gu Xingza did not react at all. His eyelids were slightly closed, and his expression was calm. However, he was like an empty shell, so empty that there was no trace of life. No! She finally began to panic. She groped around and held his face, pressing her forehead against his cheek. However,
She could only feel his cold temperature. Xingze, don't. I beg you, don't leave me. She begged in despair. Using all her strength, she hugged his shoulders tightly, trying to transfer all her body temperature to him. Xingze, I was lying to you just now. Yun Shishir said in pain. I was lying to you. I wanted you to live well. I was lying to you. I was lying to you. I won't forget you. How could I bear to forget you? Memories flashed through her mind like a revolving lantern. When they first met, he smiled and sized her up. His beautiful eyes were slightly curved, and a warm smile appeared on his face. You're so clean and beautiful. Why did you become the assistant of a small-time model? How useless. You're much prettier than her. If you enter the entertainment industry, you'll definitely be popular. Your temperament is just right for the female lead in my heart. Yun Shishir could no longer hold back her heart-wrenching sadness. She burst into tears and hugged his cold body in a sorry state, crying like a desperate child. I like you so much. I like you so much. Gu Xingze's smile was still vivid in her mind. At Huanyu's annual cocktail party, he led her to the dance floor. He was dressed in a suit. He leaned over slightly to her and made an inviting gesture, like an elegant and noble gentleman. May I have a dance with you? He smiled. His teeth were pure white and extremely charming. Life felt like the first time they met. Yun Shishir gritted her teeth and hugged his head that had no center of gravity. Tears gushed out like a fountain. She tried her best to open her eyes wide, wanting to take a good look at him. However, the wider her eyes were, the deeper the pain. In the end, all she could see was a blood-red blur. She could not see anything clearly. No! Yun Shishir cried helplessly. Let me take a good look at you. Xingze, let me take a good look at you. I can't see anything. Yun Shishir grabbed his collar tightly. The pain was so great that her soul was about to shatter. Xingze! She called his name in despair, and her cries echoing in the huge parking lot. Shishir? In the darkness, a tall figure walked towards her. Yun Shishir opened her eyes abruptly, only to see the superstar's gentle smile. Xingze! She was excited and hugged him. You're not dead. You're not dead. She was so happy that her words were all jumbled up. She only knew how to repeat the same sentence. Her heart ached as she hugged him tightly. I think I Xingze, I really think you leave, I really think I shwe. Yun Shishir's tears flowed uncontrollably. Don't make such jokes again. You leave me, you leave. Sure. Gu Xingze calmed her down. His warm hand gently caressed her hair. He smiled and said, I'm leaving. You're leaving? Yes. Where are you going? To a place very far away. Gu Xingze's tone was relaxed. This is probably a form of relief. To him, the pain of living and falling into darkness forever was a form of relief. Chapter 2869. Meeting you is the luckiest thing in my life. But meeting you has already exhausted all my luck. Gu Xingze smiled faintly. But I don't regret it. Gu Xingze suddenly turned around and looked back with a smile. I'm leaving. No. Yun Shishir immediately got up and chased after him desperately. Xingze, don't go. However, Gu Xingze seemed to not hear her voice. His back view gradually disappeared from her sight. She used all her strength to chase after him, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not catch up with him. Ah! Yun Shishir woke up in the darkness and opened her eyes wide. Through her blurry vision, she could vaguely feel a strong light shining down from the top of her head. It's okay. The surroundings were noisy, and the voices of people were clamoring. 2 people carefully carried her onto the stretcher. Be careful. Be careful of her hand. Don't crush it. In the middle of the night, the flashing lights of the police cars and ambulances were dazzling. In the long corridor of the hospital, the cold lights flashed past. The doctors and nurses were anxiously pushing the ambulance bed to the operating theater without stopping for a moment. Yun Shishir lay on the operating table with her eyes tightly closed. The piercing pain almost made her suffocate. She could vaguely make out the dejected cries of a family member among the chaotic voices around her. Then, in her daze, she heard a familiar voice. Shishir. It was him. It hurts, it hurts. She could not see anything. She reached out and was quickly held tightly by a pair of big hands. Mu Yaja pretended to be calm and called her name softly. Sure, it's me. Before he could finish speaking, the nurse pushed him aside. Sorry, sir. Please wait outside the operating theater. After that, a group of medical staff hurriedly pushed Yun Shirshir into the operating room. Mu Yaja stood at the entrance of the operating theater. Behind him, Hua Jin rushed over with Yu in his arms. Xiao Yichen ran the fastest. He rushed to the entrance of the operating theater and raised his head. When he saw the operating theater light on, he gasped. Mommy! He walked to the door in a panic and peeked through the crack. Hua Jin immediately asked, Brother-in-law, what happened to elder sister? We still don't know what's going on. Sister? Her eyes were injured. I've already sent someone to investigate the details. Previously, he had sent bodyguards for her, but according to the news, she had followed the crew to the TV station for an event, and then the crew was responsible for sending her home. Hence, they did not follow her. Furthermore, nothing unexpected had happened all this while. They let down their guard a little. Yun Shirshir also said that there was nothing special, so they didn't follow her anymore. Thus, they were on standby. Excuse me, are you the victim's family member? The doctor's trembling voice came from the emergency room not far away. Mu Yaja turned around and saw Gu Jinglian standing at the door of the emergency room. His expression was gloomy and his aura was terrifying. In the middle of the night, he had received a call saying that Gu Xingze was in trouble. He rushed over. Along the way, he felt that it was inconceivable. Trouble? How could it be? Didn't he go out for something? Chapter 2870. He said that he would not come back after returning to America. Gu Jingze had wanted to send him off, but he said that he wanted to see the most important person in his final moments. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Gu Jingze did not expect to receive such news in the middle of the night when he waited for his return. He rushed to the hospital and arrived at the emergency room. The doctor asked him if he was the victim's family member. The victim? Gu Jinglian's face darkened. Where is he? He's in the emergency room. We've already tried to resuscitate him, but he lost his vital signs on the way. There's nothing we can do to save him. The doctor said regretfully. Gu Jinglian did not believe him. How is that possible? Quack, could you have made a mistake? The doctor felt wronged. Even so, he explained in a low voice. How could I have made a mistake? The victim was a very popular celebrity when he was alive. He was a popular idol. You didn't see how the nurses in the emergency room were crying so hard. Gu Xingze had lost all signs of life on the way to the hospital. Some of the medical staff recognized him in the ambulance. This nurse happened to be Gu Xingze's fan. When she saw this scene, she was stunned as if she had been struck by lightning. It was unbelievable. The idol who had announced to the public that he was quitting the entertainment industry just a day ago was now a cold body. When Gu Xingze was sent to the emergency room, many nurses swarmed over. Oh my God! Oh my God! Isn't this Xingze? My eyes must be playing tricks on me. Or maybe, am I dreaming? The emergency room was filled with cries. No one could believe that Gu Xingze was dead. She left this world coldly and desolately. But the most heart-wrenching thing was not his departure. It was when the doctor announced that the resuscitation was futile. When the nurses cleaned his wounds, they found that he was covered in wounds and blood. Not only did he leave alone, but he also left in great pain. Even if they weren't Gu Xingze's fans, their eyes turned red from sadness at such a bleak scene. Get out of my way! Gu Jinglian lost his patience and pushed him away. He kicked the door open and barged in. The door was kicked wide open. Gu Jinglian walked in and was surprised to find a body covered tightly by a white cloth on a hospital bed in the emergency room. The nurses hugged each other and burst into tears. Gu Jinglian could not help but feel annoyed. He shouted angrily, "Get out of here!" A few nurses were shocked by his angry and cold expression. Under the doctor's eye signal, they left the room in groups. In the spacious resuscitation room, there was only a lonely bed left. All kinds of medical instruments were piled up at the side. At the foot of the bed, there were many blood-stained and cut clothes. Gu Jinglian walked over to the bed. He did not believe that the person under the white cloth was Gu Xingze. He could not help but reach out,
pinch a corner of the white bed sheet, and lift it up. Wow! Gu Xing's pale and handsome face came into view. Gu Jinglian's eyes widened slightly. He lost focus for a moment and his pupils contracted. He was so shocked by this scene that his heart stopped beating for a moment. Xingza. Was he really dead? He was in disbelief.